Chapter 643. He was not afraid of exposing his trump card. Anyway, this Xue Qian should be on his side. The two of them could fight together, so Xiao Qin was not afraid that she would know something. All right. And Xiaomo rushed out with a whoosh and went straight to the thin man. What the hell? What the hell? The thin man suddenly saw a black shadow rushing towards him. It was floating in the air, and it was still in human form. He was suddenly shocked. Oh my god, there's a ghost here. Captain Tagan, is this the ghost of the Bubbly clan? And Xiaomo's current strength was only at the 8th level of the Qi refinement stage. Even if he was a ghost talisman demon, he could only be on par with a master at the 1st level of the martial master. However, the key was that his current form was so scary that the thin man almost peed his pants. You broke into the forbidden area of the Bubbly clan. Die. Ha 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 ha. And Xiaomo smiled strangely and continued to chase the thin man. Oh my god, Captain Tagan, run, there's a ghost. The thin man was a little overwhelmed and retreated. Xue Qian also seized the opportunity and slashed at the thin man with her long saber. Although she could not kill the thin man, with the help of Xiaomo, she turned the tables and gained the upper hand. Don't be afraid. You're not afraid of humans, so why would you be afraid of ghosts? Tagan Shanxiong was bold. He sneered and said, you can kill him too. After that, he continued to punch at Xiao Chen and shouted, dazzling star fist. Xiao Chen did not exchange blows with him this time. Instead, he retreated and began to defend. Xiao Chen had suffered a great loss in the previous exchange, so he simply changed his mind. He only defended and recovered his physical strength. He was ready to activate the fireball skill again. As long as he could endure until his physical strength and vitality were replenished, he could kill Tagan Shanxiong in front of him. In order to kill the bald man with one move, Xiao Chen used all his strength. At this time, his vitality was weak. Haha. Seeing Xiao Chen retreating, Tagan Shanxiong was overjoyed. He thought that he had figured out Xiao Chen's method. As long as he fought with Xiao Chen in close combat, Xiao Chen would not be able to activate that super powerful move. In his opinion, Xiao Chen's move could only be activated from a distance. It had no effect at close combat. In his opinion, Xiao Chen's move could only be activated from a distance. It had no effect at close combat. On the other side, although an little demon had joined in, the skinny man regained his confidence because of Tagan Shanxiong's encouragement. He could also see that this ghost only had the strength of a first-stage martial master. Why should he be afraid? He was an expert of the 3rd-stage martial master after all. Therefore, although he couldn't say that he would win directly, he was much more confident than before. On the other hand, an little demon and Xue Qian didn't have it easy either. At most, they wouldn't be at a disadvantage if they worked together, but it would be difficult for them to defeat the thin man. Although Xue Qian was puzzled as to where the ghost had come from and why it was helping her fight the thin man, she did not ask any questions. She did not have the time to ask. Huh, kid, aren't you awesome? Do you want to kill me? Very well, I'll kill you first. Tagan Shanxiong sneered, if you know what's good for you and don't want the things, I can let you live. I didn't expect you to be so greedy. When Xiao Chen heard Tagan Shanxiong's words, he was filled with disdain. This person must be crazy. He asked for his help, but he didn't give him any benefits. All the good things were taken away by him. What was he thinking? Xue Qian, if you surrender now and agree to be my lover, let's deal with Xiao Chang and the ghost together. How about it? Tagan Shanxiong could tell that the thin man was unable to deal with Xue Qian and the ghost alone. Therefore, he tried to tempt him. As he spoke, his hands did not stay idle as he continued to attack Xiao Chen. Don't even think about it. Xue Qian snorted coldly, don't think I'm stupid. Humph, you don't know what's good for you. When I get rid of this brat, it'll be your turn. Tagan Shanxiong's voice became stern as he started to attack fiercely. He quickly attacked Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen did not respond and only retreated. Brat, let's see how long you're going to retreat. You've already circled around this house a few times, haven't you? Tagan Shanxiong said sarcastically. Oh, I'm preparing a big move to kill you. Xiao Chen said. Huh, this is the funniest joke I've ever heard. Why don't you fight? How about I let you fight? Tagan Shanxiong did not care at all as he continued to attack Xiao Chen. However, I'm going to kill you first. Alright, as you wish. Xiao Chen threw out a Samadhi True Fire fireball, which smashed onto Tagan Shanxiong's body. Tagan Shanxiong's expression changed and he knew that it was not good. However, because he was too close to Xiao Chen, it was already too late when he realized it. He did not even have the chance to dodge and was directly hit. Ouch! Tagan Shanxiong wailed as his entire body began to burn. He fell to the ground in pain and rolled around. Xiao Chen did not care about him. This person was a 4th stage martial master, but there was no problem. At most, he would die a little later. After being hit by the Samadhi True Fire, even a 4th stage martial master would not be able to. Thus, Xiao Chen turned to reinforce Xue Qian and Xiaoma. At this time, the skinny man also realized that something was wrong. He looked at Tagan Shanxiong, who was screaming on the ground but showed no signs of extinguishing the fire. He knew that the situation was hopeless and that he would only be courting death if he continued to struggle. No more fighting, I surrender. The skinny man shouted. Too late. Xiao Chen naturally could not reveal his trump card to such a traitor. Xue Qian and he had a common interest. Who would believe that this skinny man would betray them at the last minute? Xiao Chen sent a dark flame palm over. At this time, Xiaoma and Xue Qian also attacked. Boom! The skinny man was sent flying by Xiao Chen. In the air, he was stopped by Xiaoma and knocked to the ground. Before he could get up, the Qian Shui saber fell and the skinny man's head fell to the ground. Xiaoma returned to Xiao Chen's divine sense space without batting an eyelid. Xiao Chen praised this demon for being sensible. Outside, Xiao Chen could not communicate with him through telepathy. He could only communicate through telepathy. Xiao Chen's level was still low. Even his ghost talisman demon could not transmit telepathy through the air. If he asked Xiaoma to come back, then Xue Qian would definitely find out that this ghost was caused by him. Although Xiao Chen felt that Xue Qian would not spread it around because her personality was very cold, it was better to be careful. Now that Xiaoma had returned by himself, Xiao Chen could completely deny that he had anything to do with Xiaoma. Phew. Xue Qian squatted on the ground. She was panting heavily. Obviously, she was very tired from dealing with this fierce battle. It's okay. Xiao Chen looked at Xue Qian and said, "Thank you for standing on my side just now." No need. He was going to kill me sooner or later. I was alone, but I didn't have a chance to resist. I wanted to find some good things together, so I compromised. Xue Qian shook her head. If it were not for Xiao Chen, she would definitely be the one who would not get the extraterrestrial ink meteorite today. Even if she could not get it, she would just accept it and not complain. This was because she knew that Tagan Shanxiong had thoughts about her. She did not comply and attracted his killing intent. Therefore, if she wanted to follow them to get some good things, she could only do it when there was enough. If there was not enough, she would take the initiative to give up. So that's how it is. Xiao Chen nodded. Can you walk out of here? They are all dead. Let's go back. Yes. Xue Qian nodded. That's good. Let's split this extraterrestrial ink meteorite equally. You get a big one, and I get 2 small ones. Xiao Chen did not know whether this thing was useful to him or not. He was a cultivator, and Xia Jili was a martial cultivator. This thing was useful to martial cultivators and demonic cultivators, but it might not be useful to cultivators. Therefore, Xiao Chen kept a small one as a backup. No, just now you were fighting the enemy. I was just supporting you. I just want a small one. Xue Qian shook her head. She decisively took out a small extraterrestrial ink meteorite from the box and put it in her arms. Okay. Xiao Chen did not expect Xue Qian to be so obedient. He also put away the remaining 2 extraterrestrial ink meteorites. This thing is useful to you. In the cultivation world, we call it star ink meteorite. It is a good thing to help a foundation establishment cultivator break through to the golden core stage. Elder Heaven Ancestor's voice sounded in Xiao Chen's mind. This can help you reach the perfect golden core stage. It has the same effect as the so-called perfect breakthrough to the martial general stage. Oh. It really is useful? Xiao Chen was stunned. He thought to himself, is he not going to give it to Xia Jili and keep it for himself? It's useless for you to have so many. One is enough. Elder Heaven Ancestor seemed to know what Xiao Chen was thinking and said. If that's the case, then I'll give one to Xia Jili. This old thing has been taking good care of me. Xiao Chen thought. Let's rest for a while. I'll take you out later. Xue Qian had overdrawn a lot of her physical strength. She was a little weak now. Therefore, she sat cross-legged in a corner of the room and began to silently recover her strength. However, martial cultivators were different from cultivators. Martial cultivators recovered their physical strength very slowly. At most, they could recover to the point where they could move. It was impossible for them to recover to their previous peak state. Xiao Chen nodded and casually searched the skinny man's corpse. The Baldy and Tagan mountain dragon had been burned by him. Even if they had anything good on them, they were gone. Only the skinny man was left. After searching, Xiao Chen secretly cursed the poor man. Other than a car key, there was nothing else. Xiao Chen casually put the car key in his pocket. Then, he turned his head and picked up Xue Qian's long knife from the ground. He used the skinny man's clothes to wipe it clean. Bored, he played with it in his hand. Suddenly, he was slightly stunned. You are the female ninja, Ling Qinxue? Xue Qian, who was recovering her physical strength, trembled slightly. She opened her eyes and looked at Xiao Chen. What female ninja, Ling Qinxue? What are you talking about? Nothing. By now, Xiao Chen could basically confirm that this person should be the Ling Qinxue ninja that he met in Lan City. Although he had not seen her appearance, he could judge from her figure and temperament that this person should be Ling Qinxue. However, he did not know why she did not admit it. Could it be because they were once enemies, but now that they had joined forces, it was difficult for her to face them? Oh. Xue Qian did not explain further. She closed her eyes and recovered her physical strength. Chapter 644. After about an hour, Xue Qian had almost recovered. She stood up and said, Okay, we can go now. Since Xue Qian refused to admit it, Xiao Chen did not probe further. The two of them walked out of the room, one in front of the other, and returned to the corridor from before. After taking 2 steps, Xue Qian suddenly asked, By the way, was that ghost one of your men? Why, are you afraid? Xiao Chen asked. How is that possible? Xue Qian snorted. She was busy recovering her strength and did not pay attention to it. But now that she thought about it, it was indeed a little creepy. Where did that ghost come from? Tell me if you are Ling Qinxue, and I will tell you where that ghost came from, Xiao Chen said. Then forget it. Xue Qian did not ask any more. Xiao Chen was slightly stunned. This female ninja was quite cute. Her words had completely exposed her identity. If she had chosen to answer, she could have denied it. But saying, forget it, was equivalent to admitting her identity. She was really inexperienced. There's someone here. After a few steps, Xiao Chen suddenly said and stopped Xue Qian, Wait. There's someone here? Where? Xue Qian was stunned. She was already afraid of that ghost, and now Xiao Chen suddenly said that there was someone here. But where was the person? Why did she not see him? Don't scare me, however, after Xue Qian said that, she seemed to vaguely hear footsteps coming from far away. But since she could hear it in this corridor, it should be someone walking in this direction. Could it be the small success guard outside? Xiao Chen said. It shouldn't be. He always guards outside. He is a trusted follower of Tagan Shanxiong, so every time there is something good, Tagan Shanxiong will leave him a portion. And most importantly. Oh no, I'm afraid that Tagan Shanxiong sent him a distress signal just now. Did he dare to come after receiving it? Xue Qian said. Oh. To be honest, Xiao Qian did not think much of this initial martial master. To him, this person was only a third-level martial master and was no match for him. However, he still dared to come here even though Tagan Shanxiong was in danger. He really had guts. Sure enough, the two of them didn't have to wait for long before they saw Xiao Qing running over. However, when he saw Xiao Qian and Xue Qian, he was stunned and stopped in his tracks. You guys, are all right? Where's Captain Tagan? He's inside, dead, Xiao Qian said calmly. Dead? Xiao Qing was stunned and looked at Xiao Qian in surprise. How did he die? You wanted to kill me, but I killed you instead. Xiao Qian said, if you want to avenge him, you can do it. If you don't want to, you can go in and collect his corpse. You killed him? Xiao Qian was in disbelief. What about the others? Only Xue Qian spoke up for me. The others helped him kill me, so I killed them too. Although Xiao Qian said so, he felt a little strange when he saw Xiao Cheng's attitude. Didn't they say that Xiao Cheng had a good relationship with Tagan Shanxiong? However, Xiao Qian didn't see it. At least from his current expression, he didn't seem sad. Instead, he seemed to be gloating. Xue Qian, is this true? Xiao Cheng looked at Xue Qian. Yes. Xue Qian didn't say much and only said one word. That's great. Xiao Qing suddenly became a little excited. He suddenly bowed deeply to Xiao Qian and said, Thank you, young hero Xiao, for helping me take revenge. Revenge? What do you mean? Xiao Qian looked at Xiao Qing strangely. Actually, I have an irreconcilable feud with Tagan Shanxiong. I've always wanted to kill him. Unfortunately, I'm not strong enough and I don't have the ability to do so. Xiao Qing sighed and said, Now that young hero Xiao has helped me fulfill my wish, I can't thank you enough. Xiao Qian frowned slightly. Even if this person was afraid that he would kill him, there was no need to say that. Or, was what he said true? Thinking of this, Xiao Qian said, Are you making up a story? Don't worry, I won't kill you even if you don't join forces with him. If you want to go in and collect the corpse, I won't stop you. You are Tagan Shanxiong's confidant. Xue Qian has already told me that. No. Xiao Qing waved his hands. I'm not. Oh right, Xue Qian, I'm talking about someone. You must know her. Do you know Yalan? Yalan? Xue Qian was slightly stunned when she heard the name. How do you know her? This is a former teammate of our team. However, there was an accident and he was injured and left. Accident? Bullsh *T, that's what Tagan Shanxiong said, right? Xiao Cheng's expression became somewhat sinister. It was Yalan who discovered a spirit jade mine. That was spirit jade. She wanted to share this news with her teammates, but she did not expect that after Tagan Shanxiong found out, he wanted to keep it for himself. Hence, he created an accident to silence her. Fortunately, she was lucky and survived. However, she lost all her strength and became no different from an ordinary person. She could only pass her days in bed. What? Xue Qian was shocked when she heard this. However, when she thought of Tagan Shanxiong's actions today, what Xiao Qing said was not impossible. With Tagan Shanxiong's personality, it was very possible. My real name is Song Xian, not Xiao Qing. I snuck in and fawned over Tagan Shanxiong so that after gaining his trust, I could find a chance to kill him and avenge my girlfriend. Xiao Qing was very emotional. I didn't expect the heavens to open their eyes. Ha ha ha, young hero Xiao, if my guess is correct, there must be treasures in there. However, there were not enough treasures, so Tagan Shanxiong wanted to kill you, right? In the end, he didn't expect that he would be killed instead. This is so cool. Xiao Chen looked at the somewhat crazy Song Xian and didn't know what to say. However, if what Song Xian said was true, then it was understandable. The enemy's strength was higher than his own. He was clearly in front of him, but he couldn't take revenge. This kind of feeling was really not good. Oh, if you don't believe me, here is a photo of me and Yalan. Xue Qian knows her. As he said this, Song Xian reached into his pocket and took out a small clip. He took out a photo from it and handed it to Xiao Chen. It was a photo of a man and a woman. Xue Qian took a look and nodded. Xiao Chen understood what she meant. This photo must be of Yalan. In that case, this man whose real name was Song Xian was probably telling the truth. Okay, I believe you. What about you? Xiao Chen asked. My goal is actually revenge. These years, I have been hanging out with Tag and Shanxiong and have gotten a lot of good things. Young hero Xiao, I can give them all to you. Song Xian said. Forget it, there's no need. Xiao Chen waved his hand. He was not interested in good things. He was only interested in one thing. Where is the spirit jade mine you mentioned? Has it been mined? Yalan found it, but after Yalan was injured, her memory became incomplete. She suffered a serious head injury, so she doesn't remember where the spirit jade mine is. The doctor said that this may be selective amnesia. Because she was injured because of something, she has become resistant to it. Song Xian said. Is that so? Xiao Chen was a little disappointed. He was thinking that if he found the spirit jade mine, he would be able to quickly cultivate again. He was a cultivator, and his cultivation was different from those martial cultivators and devil cultivators. He needed a lot of heaven and earth spiritual qi. Currently, there was no heaven and earth spiritual qi in the secular world, so what he needed were spirit stones and spirit jades, especially spirit jades. If he could find a spirit jade mine, it would be really amazing. But now, it seemed that Tagan Shanxiong was dead, and Yalan was injured and couldn't remember. Xiao Chen could only give up for the time being. Young hero Xiao, are you interested in the spirit jade mine? Then when I go back, I will find a way to ask for you. Song Xian asked. Although he thought that the spirit jade mine was good, it was only valuable. He could exchange it for a lot of points in the warrior guild. But since Yalan didn't want to think about it, he didn't ask. After all, he had been following Tagan Shanxiong all these years and had gotten a lot of cultivation resources. But since his benefactor, Xiao Chen, needed it, he had to ask no matter what. Thank you. Xiao Chen nodded. Then how do I contact you after I find it? Song Xian asked. If Xue Qian can find me, you should be able to contact her, right? Xiao Chen asked. Of course, if I have any news, I will inform Xue Qian. Song Xian said, benefactor, then I won't say much. I will go in now and whip Tagan Shanxiong's corpse. That won't be possible, he has already been burnt to ashes. Xiao Chen shrugged and said, my martial skill is too strong, I didn't leave his corpse intact. Ah. That's even better. Song Xian was stunned for a moment, then immediately laughed and said, this saves me the trouble of burning his bones to ashes. I will go in and take his ashes back to make Yalan happy. Well, then we won't wait for you, we will go first. Xiao Chen said. Okay, goodbye benefactor. Song Xian quickly said. Xiao Chen and Xue Qian left first, while Song Xian happily ran into the depths of the long corridor. After he left, Xiao Chen asked, how much of what he said is true? I don't know, but what Yalan said is true. At first, we were very curious why Tagan Shanxiong told us that she was injured and quit, and then there was no more news about her. It turns out that there was such an inside story. Xue Qian shook her head and sighed, if you didn't kill him, I would have been in danger sooner or later. Since you know that I saved you, don't go against me next time. Xiao Chen said, that Yakushi Kufu is a bastard, don't listen to him. No, Master Yakushi is not, ah. Xueqian subconsciously refuted, but then realized that she said something wrong. She angrily looked at Xiao Chen and said, "You tricked me." Chapter 645. I didn't. You said it yourself. Xiao Chen said. Humph. Xueqian snorted coldly, "It was you who went against Master Night Island. As a ninja under Master Night Island, I must protect the interests of the Sakura group. If you go against us again, I will still kill you. You are biting the hand that feeds you." Xiao Chen curled his lips. "Do you believe that I will let the ghost come out and scare you?" "I don't believe it," Xueqian said. Xiao Chen gave an order to Xiaoma, and Xiaoma suddenly appeared in front of Xueqian. Ah 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 ah. Xueqian was shocked by the sudden appearance of the ghost talisman demon. She screamed and then turned to glare at Xiao Chen. "Are you a man? You will know if I am or not if you try." Xiao Chen waved his hand and took back Xiaoma. He said disdainfully, "There is something wrong with your skull. You have been brainwashed by the Sakura group. You are the one who has a problem." Xueqian snorted. "Don't move. Someone is coming," Xiao Chen suddenly said. Xueqian was stunned. "Are you trying to scare me again?" "No, someone is coming," Xiao Chen said in a deep voice. Could it be Xiao Cheng? Song Xian is back? Xueqian stopped. No. Xiao Chen shook his head, and there is more than one person. What? There are others? Xueqian was shocked after hearing this. Who else will come? How would I know? Xiao Chen couldn't help but smile bitterly and said, "Let's wait and see." Not long after that, two figures appeared before Xiao Chen. They looked somewhat familiar. It was likely that he had seen them somewhere before. Speaking of which, it should be the Dao Comprehension Sand Valley. These two must be the cultivators who escaped together with him. These two people did not have the divine sense that Xiao Chen had. When they saw Xiao Chen coming out, they were also stunned. Originally, they had also come to explore the ruins of the Bubbly clan's cultivation city. Similarly, they were tricked into going to the Dao Enlightenment Sand Valley and stayed there for more than a year. Now that they had come out, they once again came to the ruins of the Bubbly clan's cultivation city. They were not formation masters, nor were they good at breaking formations. After looking around, they finally found a formation that had been broken. It seemed that it was not completely closed, so they hurried in. They did not expect there to be people inside and they were going out. "Chen, my friend, are you two here for an adventure?" According to the rules of the adventurers, you can see that they are not good. You can't find it. When the two of them saw that Xiao Chen and Xueqian were a man and a woman, they guessed that they were not very strong. If they could get a share of the loot without expending much effort, that would be pretty good. Furthermore, as they spoke, they also revealed their martial master strengths. One was a second-layer martial master, the other was a third-layer martial master. Half. Don't say that I didn't get anything here. Even if I did, I won't share it with you. Xiao Chen said indifferently, "Get out of the way." What? Friend, are you not going to follow the rules? The third-level martial master sneered and blocked Xiao Chen's path. Rules? Alright, my rule is that whoever's fist is harder will have the final say. Xiao Chen did not want to get entangled, but this person did not stop. Xiao Chen did not put two second or third-level martial masters in his eyes. Your tone is not small. The third-level martial master winked at the second-level martial master and said, "Since you don't want to share, don't blame us for being impolite." Impolite? Whatever. Xiao Chen said directly, "You two should have come out from the Enlightenment Sand Valley, right? You should have seen how strong my martial skill is. Moreover, you don't know how to be grateful and dare to rob me?" The third-level martial master was stunned. He carefully looked at Xiao Chen. It was dark here, so he did not see clearly. Now that he looked carefully, it was actually the demonic cultivator from the Enlightenment Sand Valley who could use a big move and bring everyone away. The second-level martial master also recognized Xiao Chen. His expression changed and said, "My apologies, so it's this young hero. We were impolite, yes, then please pass. We will go take a look inside." The third-level martial master and the second-level martial master had explored together for many years, so they had a tacit understanding. Xiao Chen nodded and walked forward with Xue Qian. However, after a few steps, he suddenly turned around and threw a fireball at the third-level martial master's body. The third-level martial master's hand was only a few inches away from Xiao Chen's back. "Trying to sneak attack me?" Xiao Chen looked at the third-level martial master who was already on fire and said mockingly, "Is that all you have?" "I'm sorry, I just killed a fourth-level martial master and 2 third-level martial masters. You are so weak, yet you dare to rob me." Ah! When the second-level martial master saw the situation, he didn't even think and knelt on the ground with a put-on sound. With a sullen face, he begged, "Great hero, I'm sorry. I didn't want to sneak attack you." It was him, is that so?" Xiao Chen looked at the second-level martial master with a smile that wasn't a smile. Of course it was. The second-level martial master quickly nodded his head. "Oh, then you can also die." As Xiao Chen said this, he directly used a dark flame palm and sent the second-level martial master flying. This move might not be very useful against a third-level martial master, but it was more than enough to deal with a second-level martial master. Boom! The second-level martial master was caught off guard and was sent flying by Xiao Chen. He landed on the ground not far away and died with his eyes wide open. Xiao Chen wouldn't show mercy to this kind of person who repaid kindness with enmity. He didn't even look at him and said to Xue Qian, "Let's go." People who repay kindness with enmity usually don't have a good ending. Humph. Xue Qian coldly snorted. She knew that Xiao Chen was indirectly scolding the locust tree. This time, there was no one else. The two of them went all the way to the exit and then, under Xue Qian's lead, they left the Paoli clan's cultivation city ruins. As for why they didn't go to other places, it was because Xue Qian had only seen the road map in advance and didn't dare to wander around. "I'm going back, what about you?" Xue Qian looked at Xiao Chen and asked. "I plan to go to other places." "Right, do you know who that person called Wang Kaichao is?" Tagan Shanxiong had mentioned this person before, so Xiao Chen took note of this person. Since this person was the local tyrant of the Hakanamada Desert, he certainly knew a lot of information. Xiao Chen wanted to ask about the Blazing Mountain's heavenly flame. Since his father went missing there might be some clues. However, Tagan Shanxiong said that this person had a good relationship with him, so Xiao Chen was afraid that there would be trouble. Wang Kaichao is an old adventurer in this desert area. I've met him once and had a meal with him. To say that he is familiar with Tagan Shanxiong is not necessarily true, it's just an acquaintance. Xue Qian seemed to know what Xiao Chen wanted to know, so she directly said, "This person now sells information and mediates conflicts for a living. Therefore, people who ask for information from him usually won't make things difficult for them. Even if they don't know, they will still try their best to ask for information." "Then, do you know where he lives?" Xiao Chen was relieved. As long as this person didn't have any relationship with Tagan Shanxiong, it was fine. "He lives." As she said this, Xue Qian took out a map from her pocket. After looking at it for a moment, she pointed to a place and said, "It's here. This is a small market formed by the desert martial arts community. It's at the border between the ancient ruins of the Blazing Mountain and the ruins of the Paoli clan cultivation city. This place is not under the jurisdiction of the warrior guild, but a free trade place. Wang Kaichao lives there. It's easy to find out. Just go there and ask." "Okay, thank you. See you later." After saying this, Xiao Chen suddenly thought of something and said, "By the way, I'll add your Weixin. If there's any news about Song Xian, let me know. Aren't you afraid that I'll go back and tell Lord Yidao about you?" Xue Qian glared at Xiao Chen, but she still took out her mobile phone. "Tell him, whatever." Xiao Chen didn't care at all. He should know how the Claryman family was destroyed. As long as he's not stupid, he won't take the initiative to find trouble with me. We have no conflict of interest now. My Weixin signal is. Humph. Xue Qian added him, put away her mobile phone, and got into one of the cars. Xiao Chen got into the other car, which was the off-road vehicle that he had found the key from the skinny man. Then, he drove in the direction that Xue Qian had told him. Although the desert was endless, Xiao Chen didn't care because he had a clear direction. Sure enough, after driving for a day, Xiao Chen saw a desert city. There were many large tents here, and in front of the tents, there were small stalls. Sure enough, as Xue Qian and Ling Qianxue had said, this was a market, and many people were selling things here. Behind the market, there were some plank houses built with steel plates and wood. Although some of them were very luxurious, it could be seen that this kind of house only existed in the special environment of the desert. Xiao Chen parked the car in a place that looked like a parking lot. As soon as he got out of the car, an old lady martial artist ran over. Parking fee. Xiao Chen was stunned. He thought that he had returned to the secular world, so he asked subconsciously, how much? 1,000 yuan. The old lady said. Xiao Chen thought to himself, this is really shady. However, he could not be bothered to waste time. He took out 1,000 yuan and gave it to the old lady. Then, he asked, Senior, do you know where hero Wang Kaichao is? Oh, you're looking for him. He's behind there, in the third villa. The old lady said, pointing to a plank house. Xiao Chen thanked her and walked over quickly. However, when he reached the door of the plank house, he realized that there was also parking at the door, and it seemed to be free. Young hero, please wait. As soon as Xiao Chen was about to walk in, he was stopped by a man. This man was at the 4th level of the martial arts master, which shocked Xiao Chen. The people in the martial arts world really couldn't be underestimated. There were really many masters. Chapter 646. I'm here to look for hero Wang Kaichao. I have something to consult, said Xiao Chen. Oh, Mr. Wang is meeting guests. Please wait a moment. I'll line up for you. The man nodded after listening and led Xiao Chen to a stone table in the yard in front of the door. Then, he poured a cup of tea for Xiao Chen and said, Please enjoy. Then, he entered the house. A 4th-level martial artist was actually playing the role of a waiter. It seemed that this Wang Kaichao was really a character. He really knew how to do business. Letting a 4th-level martial artist serve could satisfy the self-esteem of these guests. At the same time, it could intimidate the thieves. Xiao Chen slowly poured and drank by himself. After waiting for about half an hour, the 4th-level martial artist from before came out again. He said to Xiao Chen, Young hero, please follow me. Xiao Chen was slightly stunned. He didn't see anyone come out just now. How could it be okay? However, Xiao Chen didn't ask much. He followed the 4th-level martial artist into the house. He saw a man in his 40s sitting on the sofa in the middle of the living room. He was tall and straight, with thick eyebrows and big eyes. He could be considered a handsome person. However, there was a scar on his face, which affected his heroic aura. He looked a bit like a bandit. Please take a seat. I wonder why young hero is looking for me. As Wang Kaichao spoke, his aura was also revealed. He was actually a 6th-level martial artist. This shocked Xiao Chen. No wonder this person could occupy a place in the Hakanamada desert. His strength wasn't weak. However, this wasn't important. Xiao Chen wasn't here to fight. He just sat calmly opposite Wang Kaichao. Wang Kaichao nodded in his heart. It seemed that this person wasn't an ordinary person. Under such an imposing aura, he was still able to maintain his calmness. This made Wang Kaichao look at him in a different light. Hero Wang, I want to inquire about something. I hope Hero Wang can give me some pointers. Xiao Chen said, I wonder if Hero Wang's consultation fee, haha. Little brother, is this your first time here? Wang Kaichao laughed. Yes. Xiao Chen was startled, then nodded and said, "This is my first time here." If you want to ask me, Wang Kaichao, for information, you can pay me with money. You can also give me worldly treasures. As for the specifics, it will depend on the value of the information you want to know, Wang Kaichao said with a smile. All right, no problem. Xiao Chen breathed a sigh of relief after hearing this. As long as he could get the money, it was fine. So he said, "The matter I want to inquire about is related to the heavenly flame of the fiery mountain." 100,000, Wang Kaichao said. Ah. When Xiao Chen heard the price, he was completely stunned. He didn't expect it to be so cheap. One piece of information for 100,000? Looking at Xiao Chen's expression, Wang Kaichao thought that he thought it was too expensive, so he explained with a smile, "My information starts at 100,000, and the heavenly mystical flame isn't a secret. You can ask others, and you'll also know. But if you ask me, it starts at 100,000. This rule can't be broken." No, I haven't finished what I want to say. When Xiao Chen heard this, he couldn't help but smile and said, "I want to inquire about it. 2 years ago, there was a trial team that went to the ancient ruins of the fiery mountain. I heard that it was a mission issued by the Secular World Martial Artists Guild. The content of the mission was related to the heavenly mystical flame. Trial team? And then?" Wang Kaichao asked after listening. Xiao Chen's words were too general. He couldn't tell what was going on at the moment. This trial team disappeared. "I only know that the leader was called Xiao Feng, and his teammate was called Qing Zhongqian," Xiao Chen said. Trial team. Xiao Feng. Qing Zhongqian. Heavenly mystical flame. Let me think. As he said this, Wang Kaichao fell into deep thought. Xiao Chen didn't disturb Wang Kaichao. Instead, he quietly waited for Wang Kaichao to think. After a while, Wang Kaichao seemed to have thought of something and said, "I don't remember the name of the person you mentioned. However, I vaguely remember that there was a small team from the secular world that went missing near the ancient ruins of the Blazing Mountain. After that, the Warrior Guild headquarters from the secular world came to investigate. Because most of the people who come here for the trial are martial artists, there aren't many from the secular world, so I have some impression of it." Oh. Then do you remember where this team disappeared, and why they disappeared? Xiao Chen asked. "I don't know about this. Because when the Martial Artists Guild headquarters came to investigate, they didn't find anything. And because it was a matter of the secular world, it didn't have much to do with me, so I didn't bother to ask about it." Wang Kaichao shook his head and said, "Now, things have changed. It's been so long, it's hard to find anything. But one thing is certain, they disappeared near the fiery mountain. If that's the case, then thank you very much." Although Xiao Chen was a little disappointed, he had also guessed this result. If someone really wanted to deal with his father, then they definitely wouldn't leave any clues or blackmail for people to find. Most likely, it was the people behind Qing Zhongfan who did it. What he didn't know now was whether they hired someone to do it, or if they did it themselves. And whether his father was still alive, Qing Zhongfan didn't know either. But the people who knew were all dead, and with Xiao Chen's current strength, it was not enough to take revenge on the people behind Qing Zhongfan. There's no need. I didn't help you, so there's no need to thank me. Wang Kaichao waved his hand. "I'm also a businessman. Even if I didn't help, I won't charge you." "No, why don't you tell me about the fiery mountain and the heavenly flame?" Xiao Chen smiled. 100,000, right? I'll transfer the money to you now. That's fine. Wang Kaichao smiled and said, "Flame Mountain is the name of an ancient sect. These ancient sects have already disappeared with the passage of time, but it is obvious that they were preparing to leave. Therefore, there are not many heavenly treasures left in the Flame Mountain that can be found. Aside from the rich spiritual chi of heaven and earth, which can regularly grow some medicinal herbs, the most famous thing is that there is a kind of true quenching flame beneath the Flame Mountain, which is also a kind of heavenly flame called the Nine Underworld Flame. It is said that by bathing in the hot spring water above this heavenly flame, it can refine the body, allowing ordinary people who can't cultivate to embark on the path of a martial artist. It can also increase the aptitude of a martial artist or a devil cultivator. Therefore, many cultivators will go there to take a bath. But because the Fiery Mountain's ancient ruins is a large array formation, after entering, the route is randomly arranged. Every time you go there, it will be different, so there is no map. After entering, whether or not you can find the hot spring depends on your luck. Some people wander around for a month and still can't stand the heat, but still may not be able to find the hot spring. Regretfully, they can only be sent out. Wang Kaichao said, and those who find the hot spring won't be able to soak for long before they are driven out. Oh. What's the reason for this? Could it be that the hot spring will automatically drive people out? Xiao Chen asked with a strange expression. That's not the case. Because the size of the hot spring is limited, even if the Fiery Mountain is an illusion array, because there are too many cultivators, there will still be many people who will find the hot spring. Therefore, only those with great strength can soak in the hot spring for a long time. Others will be replaced not long after entering. Wang Kaichao said. There's such a thing? Then what if one's strength is very weak, and after entering, they find that there is no position, then what? Wouldn't that be a wasted trip? Xiao Chen asked. If that's the case, then you can wait on the side. Wang Kaichao said with a smile, every person enters the Fiery Mountain for 1 month. After 1 month, they will be automatically sent out by the illusion array. Of course, you can come back again, but the route will be completely different. Whether or not you will be lucky enough to find the hot spring the second time is hard to say. Therefore, as long as you don't have to be sent out in a few days, you can patiently wait on the side and there is a possibility of finding a position. Like this, no matter how strong you are, you can't always occupy the hot spring. I understand now. After listening, Xiao Chen couldn't help but nod and said, since that's the case, is there any convenient way to reach the hot spring? That's it. When I was young, I also went there several times, but there were times when I couldn't find it. Wang Kaichao said with a smile, there is a ready-made map here. You can find the ancient ruins of the Fiery Mountain. As for after entering, you can only leave it to fate. Thank you very much. I'll pay you the consultation fee. Xiao Chen nodded. He had asked everything he needed to ask. Well, my card number is... Wang Kaichao said a set of numbers. Xiao Chen picked up his phone and transferred 200,000 yuan to Wang Kaichao. Then he said, the remaining 100,000 yuan can be considered as a deposit. I also asked Mr. Wang to help me inquire about the trial team. That's not a problem. Wang Kaichao also saw Xiao Chen's sincerity. He also relied on this to make a living, so he didn't decline. Leave me your contact number. If I have any news, I'll inform you immediately. Okay. Xiao Chen said and told Wang Kaichao his contact number. Then he said goodbye and left. To be honest, he didn't have any hope of finding his father in the Fiery Mountain. After all, Wang Kaichao said that it had been too long. There were people coming and going there. Even if there were any clues, they would have been wiped clean. Xiao Chen's trip this time around was nothing more than a thought in his heart. Furthermore, he wanted to see if he could subdue the heavenly flame. If he could, it would be extremely good. Not only would his battle prowess increase, he would also be able to refine pills. The underworld flame, this name was incomparably powerful. Perhaps it was even more powerful than the Samadhi true flame. Now that he was here, if he let it go, Xiao Chen wouldn't be willing. Chapter 647. 9 Underworld Flame. Legend has it that it came from the 8th layer of the 9 Underworld Hell. It is unknown how it ended up in the human world, but it is a true heavenly flame. Elder Heaven Ancestor's voice sounded, but if you want to subdue it, with your current strength, it will not be easy. Then I still have to try. Xiao Chen also knew this point, but I am now at the foundation establishment stage. If I still can't do it, then I can only give up. After refueling the car at the marketplace, Xiao Chen followed the directions on the map and drove towards the Flame Mountain's ancient ruins. The ancient ruins of Flame Mountain was actually very easy to find. There were many cultivators who came here. Previously, there were not many people on the road, but after walking for a while, the road was filled with people. However, these people were either driving or walking. They were in a hurry, but there was no dispute. Obviously, they all had a tacit understanding. They all came for the hot springs of Flame Mountain, so if they fought over some trivial matters and delayed their time, it would not be worth it. So, Xiaochen naturally felt that it was good. After all, he didn't want to cause any trouble. As the car approached, Xiaochen discovered that this place was similar to the Paoli clan's cultivation city. It was surrounded by a high wall, making it impossible to directly enter. Under the guidance of the road sign, Xiaochen parked his car in the parking lot. He also paid the parking fee of 5,000 yuan. Of course, this also had its advantages. That was, there were martial arts people to help you look after the car, so it would not be stolen. Xiaochen didn't take his backpack, but directly placed it in the car. Because he wanted to enter the hot springs, he was afraid that it would become a burden. In any case, the security here was very strict. There were several martial artists in charge of public security in the parking lot. After getting out of the car, Xiaochen turned his head and arrived at the entrance of the ancient ruins of Flame Mountain. Not far away, he saw a super big sign with the words Ancient Ruins of Flame Mountain Hot Springs Resort written on it. Next to it, there was a sentry box with the words Ticket Office written on it. If it weren't for Xiaochen being sure that the weakest person in the vicinity was a martial artist, he would have thought that he had arrived at a scenic spot in the secular world. Because this scene was too similar, the front was filled with people queuing up to buy tickets. Xiaochen looked at the long line in front of him. He found a spot at the back and moved forward step by step. After queuing for more than an hour, it was finally his turn. Looking at the ticket price, he was speechless. It actually cost 5 million. Although this price wasn't as high as the Spirit Stone quest, it wasn't something that ordinary cultivators could afford. Even though there were so many people, it wasn't something that a cultivator could easily afford. Today's ticket sale is over. Come back tomorrow. Just as Xiaochen took out his bank card and was about to make the purchase, he heard a cold voice coming from the ticket booth. World is? It's over? Xiaochen was stunned. That's right, the quota is limited every day. In order to ensure the tourist experience of the scenic area, we have to control the number of people entering the ancient ruins. The number of people being sent out every day is fixed, and the number of people entering is also fixed. The person selling the ticket said, if you want to come, please come early tomorrow. Then, how many people? Chin King every day, he's world how many people? 150. The person selling the tickets replied. Okay, thank you. Xiaochen turned around and was about to leave, but he found that there was no one queuing behind him. He realized that he was probably the only newcomer who didn't know about this rule. Other people wouldn't continue to queue when they saw that there were 150 people queuing in front of them. Only Xiaochen was still foolishly queuing for a long time. At the thought of this, Xiaochen turned his head and asked, can I line up here now? No, it's about to be cleared. In a while, the people who went in a month ago will be teleported here. If you are not afraid of being crushed to death by the people who suddenly come out, just stay here. The ticket seller warned. This, okay. Xiaochen wasn't afraid of being crushed to death, but it would be weird if he wasn't crushed to death, so he followed the rules. What time can I queue tomorrow morning? After 4:00, everyone will gather at the periphery. Whoever is faster will be in front. The ticket seller explained. Xiaochen didn't ask any more. The rules were set by others, so he could only leave first. With nothing to do, Xiaochen planned to walk around nearby. If possible, he would find more people to inquire about some information. Previously, his thinking was too simple. He thought that it would be fine as long as he came, so he didn't ask Wang Kaichao. But now, it seemed that he needed to understand more. Except for the people who queued before and the staff who maintained order, Xiaochen didn't see anyone else nearby. This made him a little puzzled. Where were the people he saw on the road just now? Xiaochen didn't pay attention to them before. He thought that they would come here to queue up, so he parked his car and rushed over. But now, it seemed that they knew the rules here and didn't queue up here. Without a choice, Xiaochen could only find a nearby staff and ask, "This is my first time here. May I ask, where does everyone spend the night? Or, where are the other cultivators?" "Oh, in the nearby Fiery Flame City. Walk that way for a few kilometers." The staff pointed to a place not far away and said. Only then did Xiaochen come to a realization. A distance of a few kilometers was nothing to martial cultivators or demonic cultivators. They could reach their destination very quickly. However, the vicinity of the Flame Mountain was within an illusion formation. The surroundings were covered in mist and they could not see clearly into the distance. "Thank you." Xiaochen thanked him and turned to walk towards Fiery Flame City. After walking for about 2 kilometers, Xiaochen suddenly stopped. His divine sense had already sensed that there were people in front of him. Moreover, there was a trace of killing intent. There should be some people arguing. Xiaochen frowned and swept his divine sense in that direction. Immediately, Xiaochen found 2 martial masters at the 4th level. The 2 of them were at loggerheads and it seemed like they hadn't started fighting yet. 4th level. Xiaochen thought for a moment and continued walking forward. With his current strength, even if he couldn't kill both of them at once, he could still escape. Furthermore, the 2 of them were enemies. Xiaochen wasn't afraid that the 2 of them would join forces to deal with him. As he walked closer, Xiaochen discovered that the 2 cultivators were a man and a woman. They seemed to be arguing about something. Thus, Xiaochen stood where he was and watched. He wanted to see when the 2 of them would start fighting. He shamelessly thought that if the 2 of them ended up injured, could he take advantage of them? Judging from their attire, both of them seemed to be martial artists. But very soon, Xiaochen realized that something was off, because he seemed to know that female cultivator. Damn it, isn't this Ling Er, the disciple of Granny Nanshan? When Xiaochen saw the female cultivator, he was instantly enraged. Damn it, you said you were going to give me some spiritual jades, but now you haven't even shown up. I thought you were in trouble and couldn't get away. I didn't expect you to be fighting with someone here. However, he didn't know how Ling Er's strength had increased so much. The last time he saw her, she was only a martial master at the 3rd level. Now, she was already at the 4th level. Xiaochen subconsciously teamed up with the male cultivator opposite him. He planned to watch Ling Er make a fool of herself. Of course, even so, he couldn't help the male cultivator. What did this have to do with him? "And Luochen, you're so vicious. You approached me just to steal my map." Ling Er glared at the man in front of her angrily. "No wonder you kept asking me to take off my clothes when we were in the hot spring. You were unhappy when I refused. After we were out of the hot spring, you even helped me dry my clothes. I saw you flipping my clothes around, so I thought you wanted to dry them more carefully. It turns out that you wanted to search my clothes. Humph, who knew you were so cautious and didn't put it on your body?" The man named Luochen snorted coldly. "So what if you found out? Today, you have to hand it over whether you want to or not. Do you think I, and Luochen, will like you because of your looks? I approached you and pursued you for a reason. You can only blame yourself for being so stupid." Xiaochen looked over. This man named Luochen was really handsome. It would be a waste of his talent if he wasn't a celebrity. There was actually such a pretty boy in the martial arts world. He looked at Ling Er again. She didn't look good wearing a human skin mask, but did Luochen not see through it? Or could it be that even if he took off the mask, he would still look ugly? Was it because he looked too ugly that he wore the mask? My Ling Er must have been blind to think that you were treating me well and wanted to become cultivation partners with me. In the end, you're so scheming. Ling Er was so angry that her chest was heaving. However, Luochen clearly wasn't interested. "It's useless to talk about this. Tell me where the map is hidden and I'll give you the antidote." Otherwise, don't blame me if the poison takes effect and you die, and Luochen said calmly. There was no sympathy on his face at all. I've been talking to you for so long. You should be content. You're an ugly woman. Why would I like you? You're an idiot. I didn't even touch you and you thought I liked you. You're delusional. You. Ling Er was obviously devastated by Luochen's words. You're really a beast. Today, I finally understand why my master told me that people are evil. When I met you, I thought that you were treating me well. I even lent you the spiritual jades that I promised to deliver to my benefactor. You said that you needed them and would return them to me after a month. I believed you, but how did you treat me? Oh my God. And Luochen, you little bastard. You cheated me of my spiritual jades. Damn you, I wanted to help you before, but now I can't help you anymore. However, Xiaochen also felt that this Ling Er was really a little stupid. And Luochen was obviously a pretty boy with bad intentions, but she actually believed him and gave her spiritual jades to him. No wonder he didn't get the spiritual jades. It turned out that Ling Er acted on her own. Chapter 648. What's the point of saying all this? And Luochen's expression was very calm. Give me the map to the teleportation portal. I know you must have it. The map is a martial arts secret. Only a few participating sects have it. I can't give it to you, even if I die. Ling Er gritted her teeth and said coldly, if I die here today, my master, Grandma Nanshan, will definitely avenge me. She has to know that you are here. Furthermore, the people of the Fire Wolfen family are not afraid of your master. And Luochen said disdainfully. Ah, I know. You are from the Fire Wolfen family. Ling was shocked. No wonder I felt that your strength was very strange. You don't seem like a martial cultivator or a demonic cultivator. Humph, of course. The time for the Fire Wolfen family to rise again is here. If you know what's good for you, hand over the map and I will give you the antidote. You can also join the Fire Wolfen family. Seeing that you are infatuated with me, I can arrange for you to be a small leader. However, you can forget about being my woman, and Luochen said fearlessly. Tui, don't even think about it. Ling said angrily. I have been tricked by you. Only a ghost would be infatuated with you. Don't even think about it. I will not give it to you even if I die. When Xiaochen heard Ling Er's childish words, he was really disappointed. If I were you, I would fight him to the death. We are both fourth-stage martial masters. Why should I be afraid of him? At most, we will perish together. Even if we can't beat him, we can still cripple him. When the poison takes effect, there will be no turning back. Very well, then let's wait for the poison to take effect. Let me see how long you can last. Let me tell you, this is the latest poison developed by the Fire Wolfen family. In a while, you will feel so good that you will tear off your flesh piece by piece. And Luochen finally threatened impatiently. I am not afraid. Ling Er stiffened her neck. Xiaochen did not know what to say. Alright, since you are so stupid, I will help you one more time. He had originally thought that Granny Nanshan and Ling were deliberately not giving him the spirit jades, but it seemed like that wasn't the case. Granny Nanshan must have asked Ling Er to deliver the spirit jades to him. However, she met Luochen on the way and was deceived by his sweet words. Ling Er must have never come into contact with any male cultivators when she was cultivating in the sect. She must have thought that she had found her true love, so she gave the spirit jade to Luochen. It seemed like Luochen still wanted the map of the teleportation portal. Xiaochen was getting a little impatient, so he walked over to him. Who? And Luochen was slightly taken aback when he saw someone walking over. However, he quickly said, Friend, don't be a busybody. This is a dispute between me and my cultivation partner. Generally speaking, when other cultivators heard that it was an internal dispute between Dao companions, they wouldn't meddle in other people's business. However, Xiao Chen scolded, "Who are you trying to fool? Your girlfriend? Get lost, this is my girlfriend." Huh? And Luo Chen stared at Xiao Chen in bewilderment. Where did this person come from? Did he mean that he was in cahoots with Ling Er? Ling Er, long time no see. Why are you looking for a man behind my back? Xiao Chen didn't want to kill Luo Chen directly. After all, the Fire Wolf and family seemed to be quite powerful. Xiao Chen had enough troubles now. He didn't want to get involved in the disputes between martial arts sects and families. Moreover, Luo Chen was deceiving Ling Er. Xiao Chen only wanted to get the spirit jade back. Ling was also stunned. However, when she saw Xiao Chen, her face immediately turned red. It wasn't because she was looking for a man behind Xiao Chen's back. It was because she had given the spirit jade that belonged to Xiao Chen to Luo Chen. Of course she was embarrassed. Xiao Chen glanced at Ling Er and thought to himself, how can a human skin mask blush? It's quite high-end. No wonder Luo Chen didn't notice it. Luo Chen frowned when he saw Ling Er blush and that Xiao Chen had indeed called her by her name. He believed Xiao Chen's words and said, "You bitch, how dare you accuse me of having a cultivation partner? You were lustful and fell in love with someone else. How dare you accuse me of lying to you? Ling Er wasn't good at arguing. She didn't know how to explain herself after hearing what Luo Chen said. That's enough. My wife's affair is my family's business. Now, hand over the spirit jade that you tricked her with and you can leave. Oh, yes, and the antidote. Xiao Chen said. Who do you think you are? Luo Chen's expression changed. However, he did not think much of Xiao Chen. In his opinion, he had stolen his woman. If it was any other powerful cultivator, they would have already attacked him. Why would they speak to him in such a manner? Obviously, Xiao Chen was not powerful enough and didn't dare to attack him. That was why he was negotiating with him. Are you stupid? Xiao Chen looked at Luo Chen with a strange expression. Did you temporarily lose your hearing just now? I already said that I'm her boyfriend. You. Luo Chen was a little annoyed. So what? Get lost, this has nothing to do with you. Do you believe that I'll skin you alive if you continue to dawdle? Slap. Xiao Chen slapped this pretty boy across the face. He hated men who tricked women the most. Xiao Chen didn't want to kill him, but that didn't mean that he couldn't teach him a lesson. You dare to hit me? Luo Chen was a little incredulous. I'm from the Fire Wolf and family. Ask around in the Hakanamada Desert, Fire Wolf and family. I've never heard of them. Xiao Chen narrowed his eyes and shook his legs. He didn't seem to know this person at all. Good, very good. Luo Chen gritted his teeth in anger. I say, Ling Er, what kind of taste do you have? I said that I've never heard of them, but he said that they're very good. Is there a needle in his head? How can he trick you with this kind of IQ? Are you sure you can do it? Xiao Chen pointed at Luo Chen as he looked at Ling Er speechlessly. Ling lowered her head and didn't know what to do. She didn't know why she was tricked by Luo Chen. Perhaps it was because she had never experienced love before. She thought that Luo Chen liked her and that she had found her true love after hearing some sweet words from him. However, now that she saw Xiao Chen teaching Luo Chen a lesson, she felt very satisfied. It was as if she had vented some of her anger. However, for some reason, her heart started to beat faster. Especially when Xiao Chen said that she was his girlfriend and that he was standing up for her, Ling Er felt very happy. Wahahaha, you're asking for it. Watch my Fire Wolf Divine Fist. Luo Chen finally couldn't take it anymore. He hadn't made a move previously because he was afraid that Ling would help Xiao Chen beat him up. If that happened, he wouldn't have any chance of winning. However, he was really angry now. Moreover, Ling Er's poison was about to take effect, so he wasn't afraid of Xiao Chen anymore. What the hell is this? Xiao Chen directly used his dark flame palm and sent the pretty boy flying. It was just a 4th stage martial master. Xiao Chen was still very relaxed and happy. Boom, and Luo Chen landed heavily on the ground. However, what surprised Xiao Chen was that other than being covered in dirt, this guy didn't seem to be injured. He got up from the ground and glared at Xiao Chen. You're actually also a 4th stage martial master? And a 4th stage devil master? Is that strange? Idiot. Xiao Chen looked at him. Are you retarded? My wife is already a 4th stage martial master. If I'm lower than her, how am I supposed to protect her? After hearing what Xiao Chen said, and Luo Chen instantly felt that his intelligence was a little low. No, how could he be low? He was a genius. He gritted his teeth and once again used the Fire Wolf Divine Fist on Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen frowned. This guy was stupid. He couldn't win, yet he still rushed forward. His intelligence was really high. Only Ling would fall for it. If it was someone else, they would have sold this guy out. Although Luo Chen was a 4th stage martial master, his actual strength was only at the level of a 2nd stage martial master in Xiao Chen's eyes. His martial techniques were especially ordinary. There was nothing special about them. Xiao Chen once again used his dark flame palm on Luo Chen's head and sent him flying. A small bump fell from his body. Xiao Chen walked over and picked it up. He realized that there were 2 small bottles inside. If he guessed correctly, they should be Ling Er's antidote. He casually threw them to Ling Er. See for yourself which one is the antidote. Don't drink the wrong one and die again. Ling Er caught it and blushed. At this moment, she finally understood who was truly good to her. She felt that Xiao Chen and Luo Chen were completely different. Moreover, her feelings for Xiao Chen were completely different from Luo Chen's. Although Luo Chen could say sweet things to make her happy, it was only to make her happy. However, Xiao Chen didn't say anything, but her heart still palpitated. This feeling made her feel shy for the first time. She thought that if Xiao Chen had asked her to take off her clothes in the hot spring, she would have done so. She didn't know why, but she just couldn't resist his request. Seeing Luo Chen crawl up from the ground and still wanting to rush over, Xiao Chen finally got angry. This is already the 3rd time. What else do you want? Xiao Chen directly threw a Samadhi True Fireball at Luo Chen. Luo Chen was stunned. His body was instantly set on fire. He couldn't help but exclaim, what kind of martial technique is this? A martial technique that will kill you. Xiao Chen said calmly, tell me where the spiritual jade is now, and I will consider letting you go. Otherwise, you will die. Die? Ha ha ha, you underestimate me. Luo Chen rolled a few times on the ground. Although his clothes were burnt to a crisp, he wasn't seriously injured. His skin was charred black, but the Samadhi True Fireball didn't spread. Instead, it was extinguished. How can such a petty trick do anything to the successor of the Fire Wolf War God? Ha ha ha, if this is all I have, I won't be able to revive the family. When he saw that Luo Chen was completely fine, Xiao Chen was extremely shocked. Chapter 649. The true Samadhi fire was a technique that he had never used before. Luo Chen was only a stage 4 martial master, and his attack power was only at the stage 2 level. How could he not be afraid of the true Samadhi fire? Who would believe him if he told others about this? Xiao Chen suddenly thought of a strange phenomenon. Luo Chen was hit by the dark flame palm, but he did not seem to be affected. Was this guy not afraid of being hit? You specialize in defense? Xiao Chen asked. Hee, you don't understand. It's much more advanced than defense. At this moment, Luo Chen looked at Xiao Chen with interest. Brat, you have some skills. How about this? You can work for me. I won't treat you badly. Pfft. Xiao Chen was worried about Luo Chen's intelligence. We are enemies now. It's one thing for you to cheat my wife's spiritual jade, but you want me to be your follower? Are you having delusions? No, no, no. You haven't experienced how powerful I am. Although I may not be that dazzling now, I will definitely unify the martial arts world in the future and dominate the world. And Luochen said while shaking his head. Ling Er, look at your taste. Why didn't you find someone stronger than me when you cheated? This guy is clearly mentally ill. Xiao Chen looked at Ling Er speechlessly. I didn't cheat. Ling Er stammered. Forget it. I lied to her, so it's my fault. How about you work for me? Don't worry, I won't be interested in your wife. As for the spiritual jade, I've already used it, so I can't return it to you. And Luochen said to himself. You will have a bright future if you work for me. I'll find some more spiritual jade for you. I'm not interested. Xiao Chen said. Although he was scolding An Luochen for being mentally retarded, he had to admit that this kid had some tricks up his sleeve. He was not afraid of the Samadhi true fire and did not seem to be afraid of being hit. He was really a monster. Sai, think about it. I'll give you my contact number so you can memorize it. And Luochen told Xiao Chen about his contact number and turned to leave. He probably knew that he wasn't Xiao Chen's opponent. Although he wasn't afraid of being beaten, he couldn't beat Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen did not chase after him, because Xiao Chen could not do anything to An Luochen either. After An Luochen left, Xiao Chen turned to look at Linger and said, What should I say about you? You must have been deceived by him, right? I'm sorry. Ling Er blushed and lowered her head, looking as if she had done something wrong. Do you think it'll be fine if I'm sorry? Xiao Chen glared at Linger. That was a spiritual jade. It wasn't easy for him to get it from the ancient ruins, but it was gone just like that. I won't dare to do it again. Linger said carefully. I won't fall for it again. I know they're lying to me. You're the only one who treats me well. I won't fall for it again, huh? Xiao Chen was taken aback. What was going on? Why did it become him being nice to her in the end? I'll listen to you in the future. I know you're the one who treats me well, Linger said shyly. Ling said shyly, I didn't realize it before, but now, I want to be Dao companions with you. What? Xiao Chen was stunned. What dual cultivation partners? Ling, what are you trying to say? Didn't you say that I'm your wife? Linger blinked. I was lying to An Luochen, okay? Xiao Chen smiled bitterly. I have to find a reason to be a busybody, right? I see. Linger's body stiffened, but she smiled and said, Yes, it's like this. I'm sorry, I thought too much, it's nothing. Xiao Chen could tell that Linger was a little disappointed. He shook his head. Did Linger think that he liked her too? What was this little girl thinking? She was too gullible. Forget it. Ling hesitated for a moment, then shook her head and said in a self-mocking manner, I'm just too stupid. Forget it. Since you know, you should go back now. Don't hang around outside anymore. You might have been tricked by some gigolo again. Xiao Chen felt a little helpless. Linger had given all her spiritual jades to An Luochen, and this guy had used them up. It seemed like there was no hope for him. Xiao Chen didn't think that An Luochen was lying. He could tell that this guy was very arrogant. He wanted Xiao Chen to be his subordinate, so it was probably true that he had used up his spiritual jades. However, Xiao Chen didn't have much hope, so he didn't feel sad. No, I know who is really good to me, so I won't be tricked. Also. Linger looked at Xiao Chen but didn't finish her sentence. Xiao Chen was shocked. Ling couldn't have really fallen for him, right? But he didn't do anything. Linger's love was really low. Actually, it was Xiao Chen who had misunderstood Linger. Linger had been deceived and had made a comparison. Then, she fell for Xiao Chen. I'm going to Fiery Flame City now. What about you? Xiao Chen asked. Linger lowered her head and said, I'm going back to the sect to receive my punishment from Master. Forget it. Just say that you gave me your spiritual jades. Don't say that you were tricked. Xiao Chen thought that he might as well be a good person to the end. Linger would be punished, which wouldn't do him any good. This. Linger was originally disappointed. However, she was happy again. You are still good to me. I know. You must think that I'm too stupid, so you don't want to be with me. Don't worry. After I go back, I will work hard to learn from Master and become smarter. Then, I will become your cultivation partner. What is this? Xiao Chen was speechless. Then I'm leaving. Thank you, Xiao Chen. Linger waved goodbye to Xiao Chen and left happily. Shaking his head, Xiao Chen quickened his pace and headed to Fiery Flame City. Fiery Flame City was near the ancient ruins of Fiery Mountain. It was a small town that had formed over thousands of years. If there was a demand, there would naturally be a supply. Many people came here in search of hot springs. Those who could not go could only live near Fiery Flame City. Here, there were inns, markets, restaurants, shops. In short, there were all sorts of facilities. Xiao Chen did not drive his car here. It would cost him 5,000 to move his car. Xiao Chen should train his body. Since it was still early, Xiao Chen randomly found a shop and walked in. Young hero, what would you like to buy? A young man walked over enthusiastically and greeted Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen glanced at him. He was actually an ancient martial art practitioner. In this place, even a waiter was an ancient martial art practitioner. However, this was not strange. He reckoned that this was the territory controlled by the outer circle of the martial arts circle. The people here were probably all ancient martial art practitioners. I'm just looking around. As Xiao Chen spoke, he started to size up the shop. Many of the things sold here were cultivation resources for cultivators. There were medicinal pills, natural treasures, weapons, martial techniques, etc. It was much more complete than the cultivator markets in the secular world. It seemed like the pugilistic world was indeed different. All right. Young hero, is this your first time coming to Fiery Flame City? The shop assistant casually chatted. That's right, this is my first time here. Xiao Chen did not deny it. If it is your first time here, you would normally buy a secret manual to clear the ancient ruins of Fiery Mountain. The shop assistant smiled and took out a small booklet from the counter. He handed it to Xiao Chen and said, "This is an introduction to the ancient ruins of Fiery Mountain. Although it will not allow you to find the hot springs immediately, it will increase your chances of success. It will help you avoid some detours." Oh. Then give me one. How much is it? Xiao Chen was somewhat astonished. There was actually such a thing. However, he needed it. 10,000. The shop assistant said. All right, swipe my card. Xiao Chen could not be bothered to bargain. In short, this was a cultivator's territory. Everything was frighteningly expensive. It seemed like earning money here was a good business. Xiao Chen tossed out his bank card, took the booklet, and flipped through it. Sure enough, the booklet clearly stated how to line up, how many cultivators could enter each day, how long they had to stay inside, and how to fight for a cultivation spot in the hot spring. It also stated how to quickly find a hot spring and so on. In short, this was a book of experience. In Xiao Chen's opinion, the 10,000 was worth it. Young hero, do you need anything else? The shop assistant asked after receiving the bank card. I don't need anything else. Xiao Chen shook his head. Other cultivation resources were of no use to him. His cultivation was a form of burning money. Small things would not have any effect. All right. The shop assistant swiped the card and let Xiao Chen enter the password. He returned the card to Xiao Chen and said, "Welcome back next time." Xiao Chen took the booklet and left the shop. He casually found a restaurant and sat down. He ordered some dishes and slowly enjoyed them while reading the booklet. The restaurants here were open all night. Xiao Chen did not plan to find an inn. He planned to eat until midnight and then queue up. The prices here were simply heaven-defying. Even if Xiao Chen had money, he could not be so wasteful. Around 2 in the morning, Xiao Chen paid the bill and headed towards the ancient ruins of Blazing Mountain. At this time, there were also other people heading there. It seemed like they were all going to queue up. The booklet also stated that at 4 in the morning, tickets would be sold. But at this time, it was a test of each cultivator's reaction speed. They had to quickly queue up. If they did not successfully queue up, or if the queue exceeded 150 people, then they would fail and could only come back tomorrow. Therefore, many cultivators would book an inn in Blazing Mountain. Sometimes, if one's cultivation was low and their reaction speed was slow, it would be very difficult to successfully queue up. However, it was also written in the clearance sheet manual that when queuing up, it was best not to rush forward blindly. Even if you rushed to the front, you might not be the first to reach the ticket booth, and the first person in front of the ticket booth would be the leader of the queue. Chapter 650. After that, the people in the back would stand in line. Of course, no one would let you cut in line. If you didn't get first place, it would be extremely difficult to join the line again. No one would give up their position for you. In this way, the best way was to keep an eye on a cultivator's back and follow him. If he succeeded in getting first place, then you would definitely have a chance as long as you followed him. As long as you weren't ranked 150th, you would definitely get a chance. However, this also had its drawbacks. The person in front might not be able to get first place, or the others might also keep an eye on that person. Then, it would depend on whose reaction speed was faster. This method was widely spread. Basically, you would keep an eye on the first person to get first place. Then, you would be followed all the way to the 150th place. Those who weren't followed would basically be eliminated. Although this method was good, it could also fail. Therefore, Xiao Chen didn't intend to use this method. He planned to get first place. Although it was difficult, it should be relatively easy for a cultivator like him. All the cultivators were standing at the edge of the square. No one could enter first. If they entered before the time limit, it would be regarded as a violation of the rules. They would be disqualified from buying tickets for 10 days. Xiao Chen arrived early, but when he arrived at the square, there was already a sea of people. Everyone surrounded the edge of the square. Fortunately, the square was big enough. As long as they didn't arrive too late, they could stand at the edge of the square. At 4 o'clock, everyone ran to the ticket booth together. Xiao Chen stood in a position and was ready to go. Of course, Xiao Chen was a newcomer. He had never appeared before, so almost no one was optimistic about him. There shouldn't be anyone following behind him. Many cultivators had already fought for experience. They knew who was more likely to get into the top 150, so they casually stared at those people behind them. However, it didn't mean that this person could get into the top 150, so they could sit back and relax. If you stared at him, others might also stare at him. At that time, it would be hard to tell who would be the winner. Xiao Chen was aiming for first place. He didn't have time to study who could get into the top 150. This wasn't something that could be studied in a day or two. He didn't have that kind of time. New Year's Day had passed, and the Spring Festival was just around the corner. He wanted to go back to the Xiao family during the Spring Festival and spend the Spring Festival with the Xiao family. At 3:50 p.m., the lights at the ticket booth were turned on, and a few staff members came out one after another to maintain order. One of them was holding a small flag in his hand. It seemed like he was going to command the crowd later. At 4 o'clock sharp, the staff member waved the small flag in his hand, and then everyone rushed forward. Xiao Chen also quickly ran to the ticket booth. He was a cultivator, so he had the advantage of speed. However, besides him, there were also speed-type martial artists. Although Xiao Chen was already very fast, Xiao Chen still saw a person running neck and neck with him. This person was a level 1 martial artist. Although his strength wasn't very high, he ran very fast. He should have cultivated speed-type martial arts. When this person saw that Xiao Chen was running as fast as him, he was very surprised. Every time he went to buy tickets, he was always the first. Although he was weak, because of this, he got to know two powerful friends. Because every time he bought tickets, he allowed these two friends to stand beside him and then run with him, becoming the second and third place. This way, with the help of these two friends, when he found the hot spring, as long as one of these two friends was there, they could also take care of him, so that he could smoothly cultivate in the hot spring without being chased away. Of course, at this time, he didn't have time to ask Xiao Chen why he was also running so fast. He just gritted his teeth and sped up, wanting to overtake Xiao Chen. However, Xiao Chen was always running side by side with him. It wasn't easy to overtake him. The dark horse, Xiao Chen, surprised many people. At least, there was a smart guy who temporarily changed his target and stared at Xiao Chen. In his opinion, instead of betting on others, it was better to bet on Xiao Chen. In fact, the distance wasn't very far. For many people, the difference was only 1 or 2 steps. Xiao Chen and the level 1 martial artist ran at the front. Seeing that they were about to reach the ticket booth, the level 1 martial artist changed direction. He didn't run to the ticket booth, but turned in another direction. Behind him were 2 high-level martial artists. These 2 people didn't look at anything else. They only stared at the level 1 martial artist. When he changed direction, the 2 people also changed direction one after the other. Behind this high-level martial artist, there were other people following him. In the end, when one person made a mistake, the group of people behind him also made a mistake. On the other hand, Xiao Chen was the first to stand in front of the ticket booth. He looked indifferently at the first-layer martial master. Although he had played a trick, this was how it was in the martial arts world. Mutual deception reigned supreme, and a cultivator's skills were also a type of strength. However, the person following Xiao Chen was overjoyed. He realized that he had made the right bet. The person behind this person was also overjoyed. His luck was really good. This person's speed was average, so it was difficult for him to enter the top 150. However, the others couldn't keep up with him, so they could only follow behind him. As a result, one after another, those who originally had no hope and only had the mentality of trying their luck all succeeded in entering the top 150 this time. As for those who were originally full of confidence, they all failed one by one. Following one wrong person would result in all the wrong steps. The level 1 martial artist ran a few steps before he suddenly came to his senses. He realized that something was wrong. Just now, his mind seemed to be blank. He just had a thought and ran in this direction uncontrollably. When he turned his head, he saw that the situation had already been decided. He was instantly dumbfounded. He came out of the hot spring and rested in the inn for a few days. He was preparing to rush to first place today. Who would have thought that he would be careless and let someone else take first place? However, at this moment, he couldn't get angry. He could only look at Xiao Chen with hatred. The 2 high-level martial artists behind him were also very angry. What was going on? Where did this kid come from? How did he get first place? However, since the situation had already been decided, he could only think about it tomorrow. If he dared to cause trouble here, he would definitely be disqualified for a month. I'm sorry, I don't know what happened to me just now. It seems like I was too focused on my opponent and ran astray. The level 1 martial artist said to the 2 high-level martial artists behind him with some regret. Forget it, we'll talk about it tomorrow. The 2 of them also knew that people would always make mistakes. At most, they would come back tomorrow. It was just that today was a little suffocating. One of the high-level martial artists looked at Xiao Chen with a sinister look and remembered this person's appearance. The 3 of them left dejectedly. The people behind them who had planned to follow them a few days ago also left. There was no other way. They would come back tomorrow. Fortunately, there was still hope. The ticket sale started. Xiaochen took out his bank card and was about to swipe it. However, what made Xiaochen puzzled was that the person selling the tickets was also puzzled. The first place is free of charge. Free of charge? Xiaochen was stunned. This was probably written in the secret manual. However, Xiaochen didn't read it in detail and skipped it. Oh, it's you. Number 151 from yesterday. Are you new? The person selling the tickets recognized Xiaochen. You are quite fast. Take the ticket and prepare to enter. As he said this, the person selling the tickets gave Xiaochen a sign. On it was written, Flame Mountain Ancient Ruins No. 1. Xiaochen took the sign. Under the guidance of another staff member, he arrived in front of a teleportation array at the side. He went to one of the positions. This teleportation array could teleport 6 people at a time. Therefore, he had to wait for the people behind him to arrive together before he could activate it. Soon, the 6 people stood in front of the teleportation array. The staff member at the side activated the teleportation array. Xiaochen blinked his eyes and entered the desert. It was exactly the same as the previous teleportation. There was no one else beside him. This teleportation array also teleported people randomly. At least within his visibility, he didn't see anyone else. Previously, Xiaochen had carefully read the secret manual. It was about how to find hot springs in the desert. Therefore, he had overlooked some small details. The first place had the preferential treatment of free of charge. No wonder that first-level martial artist had so many people following him. It seemed like he had been here for free of charge all year round. Everyone knew him. Of course, Xiaochen could also continue to get free of charge. However, he didn't have that much time to stay here. Xiaochen first took out the compass and determined his direction. Because this was an illusion array, the surroundings were misty. The visibility was particularly low. He couldn't see anything more than a few dozen meters away. However, this didn't matter. According to the secret manual, the hottest place was where the hot springs were. Therefore, as long as he found the hottest direction and kept walking, he would be able to reach the hot springs. However, it was easier said than done. The temperature increased step by step. If he didn't continue walking for a long time, it would be difficult to tell whether it was getting hotter or colder. Furthermore, if he were to go in the wrong direction, with the current visibility, the slightest deviation could mean thousands of miles. It was very likely that he would miss the hot spring just by changing his angle. However, this was nothing to Xiaochen. The 6 senses of a cultivator were very powerful. He only needed to use the spot where he first landed as the center of the circle. He circled around the area and found the hottest spot. Then, he formed a straight line through the center of the circle and this spot. He quickly moved along the straight line. This method was difficult for non-cultivators to distinguish the slight difference in temperature even if they walked in a circle. It didn't take long for Xiaochen to arrive in front of a huge building that looked like a swimming pool. He found that there were many cultivators gathered around the swimming pool. There were at least 10 of them, and most of them were martial artists. Sure enough, Xiaochen found this place without much effort. He wasn't in a hurry. He didn't understand why these cultivators didn't enter the hot springs to cultivate. Therefore, he walked over and stood to the side to watch. Chapter 651. It turned out that in the hot spring, there were dozens of marked cultivation spots, and all of them were occupied by cultivators. There were no empty spots at all. No wonder these people were all standing here waiting. Is everyone queuing up? Xiaochen looked for a martial master cultivator who was closest to him and asked. Queuing? Of course. That cultivator looked at Xiaochen strangely. He was a devil master at the peak of the first layer. Didn't you say that we could fight for spots? Xiaochen looked at the crowd strangely. We are the weakest here. Don't you see that everyone here is a peak level 1 martial master? The cultivator smiled bitterly and said, since we are here, we can only wait. Even if it is a first layer martial master in the pool, I might not be able to completely suppress him. If we were to fight, I might not be able to gain an advantage, so we can only line up. So that's how it is. Xiao Chen nodded. He wasn't an overbearing person, but if he continued to queue like this, how long would it take? Should he fight for one spot or not? While he was hesitating, Xiao Chen heard a voice. Ha ha ha, I'm lucky this time. It only took me 10 days to find the hot spring. The voice belonged to a peak level 3 martial master. He walked over quickly and said in a pleasantly surprised tone, looks like I can cultivate in peace for 20 days. He did not hide his strength at all. Hence, when he passed by those first layer or peak first layer martial masters, these people could not help but make way for him. As for Xiao Chen, he was some distance away, so he was not affected. The moment he appeared, the expressions of all the low-level cultivators in the hot spring changed. This person showed his strength the moment he arrived. It was obvious that he wanted to find someone to replace him. Of course, the high-level martial masters didn't care. They were all calm and composed. Hee, who's going to make way for me? The peak level 3 martial master chuckled and looked at the low-level cultivators in the hot spring. The cultivators below the third martial master all lowered their heads. None of them wanted to be replaced. After all, it wasn't easy to get a spot. You. The peak third layer cultivator suddenly extended his hand and pointed at a peak first layer cultivator in the center of the pond. Me? The pinnacle cultivator was in disbelief. He was already very close to the center and his head was very low, so how did he discover him? Moreover, he was at the peak of the first layer. Shouldn't he target the weakest layer? That's right, hurry up and come out. The peak level 3 cultivator shouted impatiently. Although he was unwilling, the peak first layer cultivator still stood up from the hot spring. He had no choice. Who asked him to be so unlucky? The peak of the third layer cultivator was very pleased with himself and prepared to cultivate. As for the peak of the first layer cultivator, he stood behind Xiao Chen. According to the rules, those who were replaced had to line up at the back. Who asked him to have so many days left? He couldn't afford to waste it, right? At this moment, Xiao Chen guessed what the peak level 3 martial master was thinking. This guy chose a spot that wasn't the innermost but was also quite remote. His purpose was probably very simple. He was afraid that a higher level cultivator would come and replace him. Although the possibility was small, even a higher level cultivator would pick the weaker first layer cultivators. They wouldn't take the initiative to deal with a peak level 3 martial master unless there was no one weaker than him. Earlier, Xiao Chen had been hesitating on whether or not to snatch someone else's spot. Now, however, he no longer felt any pressure. Xiao Chen pointed at the cultivator who had just arrived at the peak of level 3 and sneered, "You. Come out, I've taken a fancy to your spot." What? The peak level 3 martial master thought he heard wrong. He looked at Xiao Chen in disbelief. Was he talking to him? Yes, come out quickly. Xiao Chen imitated his tone and said impatiently. Haha. The peak level 3 martial master suddenly laughed. He looked at Xiao Chen as if he was looking at a big joke. Brat, are you talking to me? You're new, right? Don't you know the rules? I'll just treat it as a joke. I'm in a hurry to cultivate, so I don't have time to deal with you. Don't test my patience. Do you want to fight? Xiao Chen didn't waste words and directly said. The peak level 3 martial master saw that Xiao Chen was so arrogant and didn't seem to be joking. His face immediately became gloomy. He coldly stared at Xiao Chen and said, "Brat, if you kneel down and admit your mistake, I won't kill you." The number of martial masters that died in my hands can be counted on one hand. What you said is exactly what I wanted to say, Xiao Chen said. Ha. That's good. The peak level 3 martial master flew up and directly landed on the edge of the hot spring. He revealed all of his strength and clawed at Xiao Chen's head, Fierce eagle claw. Although Xiao Chen was a true cultivator, his only weakness was that he couldn't reveal his strength. If he didn't make a move, others wouldn't be able to see his strength. Even if he revealed all of his true cultivator strength, he would only be able to show the strength of a peak level 2 devil master. Pa! Xiao Chen couldn't be bothered to get entangled with this person. With a dark flame palm, he directly swatted the peak level 3 martial master away like a fly. He didn't hold back either, so this peak level 3 martial master was unlucky. He let out a blood-curdling scream and spat out a mouthful of blood in the air. Then, he fell heavily on the ground 10 meters away. He struggled a few times but couldn't get up. It was obvious that he had suffered a serious internal injury. At this time, the way everyone looked at Xiao Chen was different. Although he looked like he only had the strength of a peak level 2 devil master, the martial skills he displayed were enough to match a peak level 3 martial master. In fact, they even faintly surpassed it. Fourth layer. The peak level 3 martial master struggled a few times and spat out 2 words with difficulty. "Excuse me," Xiao Chen indifferently walked towards the hot spring. He didn't even bother to look at the peak level 3 martial master. The martial master who had spoken to Xiao Chen before had a lingering fear in his heart. Why wasn't his attitude just now better? This guy wouldn't hold a grudge against him, right? The crowd unconsciously opened up a path for Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen smoothly walked to the edge of the hot spring. However, he subconsciously wanted to enter the hot spring, but he hesitated for a moment. He turned his head and looked at the nearest martial master and asked, "Is the water in this hot spring very deep? I see that everyone is flying over instead of walking over. Why is that?" "Ah." The martial master was startled. Although he was puzzled by Xiao Chen's question, he still explained truthfully, "That's right. The water in this hot spring is so deep that you can't see the bottom. If you go in, you basically won't be able to come out." Therefore, everyone directly flew over to the cultivation spots. The cultivation spots are stone platforms that have existed since ancient times. "There is no problem at all." Xiao Chen nodded. So that's how it was. Just now, he was puzzled as to why these people didn't cultivate in the gaps between the cultivation spots. Instead, they just had to wait for people to give up their cultivation spots. It turned out that there were no other places to cultivate. Thinking of this, Xiao Chen directly flew over to the empty cultivation spot and sat down cross-legged. In fact, when Xiao Chen arrived at the ancient ruins of the Blazing Mountain, he already knew that his father was definitely not inside. According to the rule that he would definitely be transported out within a month, even if his father got lost here, he would definitely be transported out. As for this hot spring pool, Xiao Chen sensed it. Although there was heaven and earth spiritual energy in it, and it could indeed have the effect of washing the marrows and bones of a martial artist, the effect was extremely limited. At least, this was the case for Xiao Chen. He could cultivate here, and his cultivation speed would be faster than outside. However, if he wanted to achieve results, he would definitely not be able to do so without 8 to 10 years. By then, it would be too late. "And Xiaoma, go and find out for me where the netherworld flame that heats up this pool is." Xiao Chen was now thinking about the heavenly flame. "Oh." And Xiaoma came out of the sea of spiritual awareness and directly entered the hot spring. No one discovered him. Who would have thought that there was already an additional black shadow in the spring? With the mentality of taking things as they come, Xiao Chen temporarily cultivated in the pool. It was better to be slow than nothing. He would cultivate as much as he could. Xiao Chen still understood the principle of accumulating. Time passed by minute. This pool was probably very deep. Even if Xiaoma was a ghost talisman demon, it would not be easy for him to explore it. He would not be able to get a result in a short time. The sky darkened, and the sky brightened again. Xiao Chen was a little worried. How deep was this pool? What was down there? Would there be any problems after Xiaoma went down? However, it was useless to worry. Without knowing the situation, Xiao Chen could not rashly look for Xiaoma. Fortunately, the trace of spiritual awareness connection between him and Xiaoma still existed, indicating that Xiaoma should not have been destroyed yet. Another 2 days passed and Xiaoma still had not returned. Xiaoqun could only wait while cultivating. In the past few days, a few cultivators had been teleported out of this place because their time was up. The peak third-layer cultivator who had been sent flying by Xiaoqun did not come to line up again. It was obvious that his injuries were not light. Xiaoqun did not know where he had gone to recuperate. With his current condition, he would definitely not be able to compete with others for a spot. Even a first-layer martial master might be able to suppress him. Every day, newcomers came to the periphery of the hot spring. The rules were the same as before. Some low-level martial masters were directly squeezed out. However, there was a third-layer martial master who relied on his strength to make Xiaoqun give up his spot. As the number of high-level martial masters increased these days, the weakest in this pool was only a second-layer martial master. On the surface, Xiaoqun looked like a peak second-layer fiend master. Therefore, he was treated as a pushover by the third-layer martial master. However, just as he spoke, he was stopped by a familiar cultivator who explained to him. This person was shocked and looked at Xiaoqun with a hint of evasion. He quickly cupped his fists and said, "I'm sorry, it turns out to be a senior from the fourth layer. I have offended you just now." Chapter 652. Xiaoqun's tyrannical ferocity was still vivid in the minds of these first-layer martial masters. Therefore, if anyone had any ideas about Xiaoqun, most of the people who were familiar with him would warn them. However, today, there were 3 people who were not afraid of Xiaoqun. These 3 people were the first-layer martial master and the 2 advanced martial masters. These 2 were 4th-layer and 5th-layer martial masters respectively. When he saw these 3 people appear, Xiaoqun's eyelids twitched slightly. He didn't expect these 3 people to be able to find this place at the same time. He didn't know how they were able to meet in the illusion array, but it was clear that they had some tricks up their sleeves. "I'm afraid everyone knows the 3 of us, right? I won't say too much. The 3 weakest people in the pool, give up your positions." The 5th-layer martial master stood at the edge of the hot spring and said in a powerful voice. Although his voice wasn't loud, it carried an unquestionable certainty. It was clear that this was the order he gave to the others every time he came. When the cultivators in the hot spring saw these 3 people, they all had helpless expressions on their faces. These 3 people were very famous in this area, but they would appear in the hot spring almost every month. Every time they came, they would ask others to give up their positions. If they had to give up their positions to the 4th-layer and 5th-layer martial masters, the others would be willing to do so. However, they had to bring along a 1st-layer martial master to take advantage of them every time. This made it a little unfair. However, the situation was stronger than the people. The 2 advanced martial masters were very overbearing and would make a move at the slightest disagreement. Not many people present were a match for them. After all, this hot spring was only effective against martial masters below the 6th-layer martial master level. Those above the 6th-layer martial master level didn't have much use. Therefore, these 2 people rarely had opponents. Even if they did, they wouldn't provoke them. They would only target low-level martial masters. In the hot spring, there were 3 relatively weaker people. At this time, they took the initiative to stand up. There was no choice. It was better than being beaten out of the hot spring. Isn't that the kid over there who runs fast? The 1st-layer martial master's eyes were sharp. He immediately saw Xiaoqun in the hot spring and his eyes spat out flames of anger. Oh. The 4th-layer and 5th-layer martial masters looked in that direction. Indeed, they saw Xiaoqun. "You don't have to get up." The 5th-layer martial master pointed at the person who had taken the initiative to stand up. He then pointed at Xiaoqun and ordered, "You, the kid in the white shirt. I'm talking to you. Stand up." There was a reason why they hated Xiaoqun so much. They were about to succeed, but Xiaoqun beat them to it. Although they would succeed the next day, it would be different after they entered. The three of them had been wandering around the blazing mountain hot spring for many years, so they had a general understanding of the illusory array here. In other words, entering on that day would be the easiest time for the three of them to find the hot spring. If they missed it by a day, the three of them would have to teleport a little further away. It would not be easy for them to meet up, and it would also be difficult for them to find the direction of the hot spring. This was something they had learned from their experience. They even had to pay attention to where they stood on the teleportation formation. And every time they were able to quickly find the hot spring, it was also because of this rule that they had figured out. However, they had delayed Xiao Chen for a day, and in the end, he had spent several days in the Flame Mountain. This made them extremely angry, and they pushed all the blame onto Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen frowned. He thought to himself that these three people were really looking for trouble. They didn't hurry up and cultivate after coming here. Instead, they wanted to find trouble with him. Did he offend them just because he got first place? Xiao Chen naturally did not know the inside story. Of course, even if he knew, he would not give in to them. His own time was also very precious. Are you talking about me? Xiao Chen stood up and said coldly. One was at the fifth and the other was at the fourth. He did not have any confidence at all. Without Xueqian's help and Xiaoma by his side, it was already not bad for Xiao Chen to be able to sneak an attack on this fourth layer martial master. As for the fifth layer, it was basically impossible. He did not want to leave. He still did not know where Xiaoma was, but he had no choice. However, he could not let these people have it too easy. He had to at least kill one of them before leaving. Xiao Chen did not believe that these people would dare to chase after him in this low-visibility desert. With this thought in mind, Xiao Chen leaped onto the shore and threw a fireball at the fourth layer martial master in front of him. Then, he threw a dark flame palm at the fifth layer martial master. In Xiao Chen's opinion, the fireball technique would definitely be able to kill a fourth layer martial master. As for this fifth layer martial master, the fireball technique would not work. At most, it would cause a small injury, let alone a dark flame palm. It might not even cause a small injury. However, what Xiao Chen did not expect was that the fifth layer martial master's reaction speed was very fast. When Xiao Chen smashed his palm over, he directly kicked at Xiao Chen. Boom, Xiao Chen was shocked. He only felt a huge force suddenly attack him, pushing him towards the hot spring. Before he could find a cultivation spot, he fell into the gap between two cultivation spots and suddenly sank. Xiao Chen subconsciously struggled upwards. The hot spring was bottomless. Who knew what was at the bottom? However, the hot spring seemed to have a suction force but no buoyancy. Xiao Chen felt his body swaying. Even if he struggled with all his might, it was to no avail. Before he completely sank, the last scene Xiao Chen saw was the fourth layer martial master on fire quickly jumping into the cultivation spot in the hot spring. The true samadhi fire on his body was actually extinguished by the hot spring water. How was this possible? Xiao Chen did not expect that his two full-powered attacks would not cause any damage to the two of them. If he had known this would happen, he would have attacked the first layer martial master. Xiao Chen quickly sank into the hot spring. His mind was still filled with doubts. Why was it that other extinguishing methods were ineffective against the true samadhi fire, but this hot spring water could? You overestimate yourself. Although the fourth layer martial master was in a somewhat sorry state, he had immediately jumped into the water after being hit and did not suffer any injuries. Therefore, he thought that Xiao Chen had only used a very ordinary demonic cultivator martial technique. As long as he entered the water, he would be able to break it. If you don't court death, you won't die. Seeing that there were only a bunch of bubbles left on the surface of the hot spring, the fifth layer martial master shook his head. He coldly snorted and leaped onto the cultivation spot that Xiao Chen had been at. There was a reason why he was so angry and wanted to kill Xiao Chen right from the start. He was about to break through to the peak of the fifth layer. It could be said that he was burning with impatience. Therefore, he was very angry that Xiao Chen had delayed him for a few days. The first layer martial master did not say anything. He only sneered and went to another cultivation spot. In his opinion, the fifth layer martial master was right. Xiao Chen was completely courting death. If he left quickly, although it would not look good on his face, at least he would not die. Now that he had entered this hot spring, he would drown soon, right? At the very least, since ancient times, there had never been a precedent of people being teleported out of the hot spring. This was because dead people would not be teleported out. Xiao Chen felt like he was being held back by some kind of force as he kept falling. There was gravity in this hot spring, so he wouldn't drown. After all, he was a cultivator at the peak of Foundation Establishment Level 1. The essence in his body could replace breathing. However, if he kept falling like this, where would he go? Even if he was a cultivator, it was impossible for him to stay down there for the rest of his life, right? Xiao Chen gave it a try. At the very least, he was unable to swim up. With his current strength, he was completely unable to compete with the gravity. Sigh. Xiao Chen sighed in his heart. However, he was still here. He could be teleported out in a month. Thinking about it, as long as he did not die at the bottom of the hot spring, there would be no problem. Xiao Chen could still survive for a month. After falling for an unknown period of time, a familiar voice suddenly sounded in Xiao Chen's ear. "Master, why are you down?" "Little demon?" Xiao Chen was shocked. He looked up and saw that it was indeed in Xiaoma. "Master, I've already investigated. The bottom of this lake is very deep and wide. Apart from some dead people's bones, there is also a pile of bluish-purple flames burning. This should be the heavenly flame that Master needs." And Xiaoma followed Xiao Chen and descended again. "The flames are actually in the water?" Xiao Chen was a little shocked when he heard in Xiaoma's words. This completely subverted his common sense. There was actually fire in the water? The heavenly flame is a flame that belongs to the laws of heaven and earth. At this time, the elder heaven ancestor's voice sounded. "What's so strange about burning in the water? There are also some heavenly flames that are in rocks or ice. This is not strange. There are even flames wrapped in flames. The reason why this hot spring water can extinguish your true samadhi fire is probably because there is an even more powerful netherworld fire in the water. I was also wondering how this hot spring water could extinguish the true samadhi fire. Now it seems that this is the reason. There's such a magical thing." This was the first time Xiao Chen had heard of it. Indeed, some things in the cultivation world existed that subverted common sense. However, Xiao Chen did not have the previous resentment at this moment. He came here to subdue the heavenly flame. Since the heavenly flame was at the bottom of the hot spring, he had to go down no matter what. Even if he waited for Xiaoma to return, the result would still be the same. However, it would be difficult to explain to the other cultivators why he jumped down. Now that he was kicked down by a fifth-layer martial master, it saved him a lot of trouble. All the way down, Xiao Chen finally saw the bottom of the hot spring. The bottom of the pool was very big. It was actually a structure similar to a slender bottle. The deeper it went, the wider it became. Looking at the bottom of the pool, there were some scattered bones. They must have been cultivators who had drowned before. Where is the netherworld fire? Xiao Chen did not see anything similar to a flame in his line of sight. "It's over there." And Xiaoma said, "It's more difficult to find because this flame is bluish-purple and very weak. If I don't look carefully, I won't be able to find it at all. It took me a few days to find it." Chapter 653. Xiao Chen nodded in realization. It was no wonder. And Xiaoma had been down there for a few days. He had thought that he had disappeared. "Lead the way." Although the bottom of the hot spring was flat, because of the water, even Xiao Chen walked very slowly here. He was different from Xiaoma. This guy was a ghost talisman demon. When floating in the water, Xiao Chen could only rely on walking. Moreover, because of the strong gravitational force at the bottom of the pool, his footsteps were very heavy. Every step took a lot of effort. If not for Xiaoma, he would not have been able to find anything at the bottom of the lake even if he came in once. Suddenly, Xiao Chen's footsteps stopped. He was attracted by a jade pendant shining with green light next to a pile of bones at the bottom of the pool. He subconsciously squatted down and wanted to pick it up to see if it was a spiritual jade. But when he picked up the jade pendant and saw the appearance of the jade pendant, Xiao Chen was stunned. At this moment, his mind suddenly went blank. Tears also gushed out in an instant, mixed in the spring water, but no one noticed. This jade pendant was his father's jade pendant. Xiao Chen's hand holding the jade pendant trembled a little. He never expected to see his father's jade pendant at the bottom of the lake. This jade pendant was carved by his father. It was made according to the appearance of the jade pendant made from the spiritual jade he had on him. He wore it on his body as an amulet, so Xiao Chen recognized it at a glance. There was no mistaking it. How was this possible? Could it be that his father had died in this hot spring? Among these bones, was there a pile of fathers? Xiao Chen couldn't believe it, nor did he want to believe it. No, he must have made a mistake. Someone else also had this jade pendant. However, when he turned over the jade pendant, the obvious Xiao character on the back of the jade pendant would not lie. At this moment, Xiao Chen was silent. He squatted at the bottom of the water in pain, feeling at a loss. He only felt that at this moment, everything had become meaningless, as if the sky had collapsed. The truth he had been searching for had been shattered. Master? And Xiaoma floated forward for a distance and found that Xiao Chen did not follow, so she quickly turned back to look for him. Xiao Chen was pulled back to reality by a little demon's voice. Looking at the jade pendant in his hand, he was in so much pain that he did not want to respond. He knew that his father was looking for this hot spring water so that he could bring it back to temper his body. However, was this really his father's skeleton? Although Xiao Chen saw the jade pendant and guessed that his father was most likely dead, there was still a trace of doubt in his heart. If his father fell down, then what about the others? There were so many people in that team. They couldn't all fall down, right? Didn't anyone spread the news? Could he have accidentally dropped the jade pendant to the bottom of the pond? Thinking of this possibility, Xiao Chen suddenly felt his whole body relax. Sometimes, as long as there was hope, even if one knew that this hope was not very likely, one would still follow this hope and move forward. This was the case for Xiao Chen now. He thought of this possibility, and the more he thought about it, the more he felt that his guess was correct. He took a deep breath, stood up, and strode forward. As for the pile of bones behind him, Xiao Chen did not even bother to take a closer look. Only he knew deep in his heart that he did not look at it because he did not want to find anything. The more he looked, the easier it was for him to get lost in some details. Let's go, it's nothing. Xiao Chen shook his head and said faintly. Oh. And Xiaoma did not ask much and continued to lead the way. Half an hour later, and Xiaoma pointed to a depression not far ahead and said, Master, the heaven and earth mystical flame is inside. Xiao Chen looked around and saw that there was a depression at the bottom of the pond, but it was difficult to find it if one did not walk close. No wonder Xiaoma had looked for it for so long. If one just looked back and forth, it would be impossible to see it clearly. There was a little surprise in his heart, and the haze in his heart slowly dissipated. Xiao Chen walked over and squatted down. A scorching hot air came to his face, but there was a gloomy and cold aura in it. This was a very strange feeling. It felt very hot, but there was an involuntary chill in his heart, and it even made him shiver. This flame was indeed the heaven and earth mystical flame from the 9 Serenities hell. As soon as he got close, he felt a chill in his heart. Just from this encounter, Xiao Chen could feel that this flame was very powerful. It was definitely more powerful than his true Samadhi fire. Sure enough, the heaven and earth mystical flame was much stronger than the flames produced by the cultivators themselves. Elder Heaven Ancestor, how can I subdue this mystical flame and make it my own? Xiao Chen asked with some excitement and joy. If a cultivator wants to subdue a mystical flame, the method is very simple. That is to destroy the divine sense of the mystical flame. Elder Heaven Ancestor said, the heaven and earth mystical flame is a spiritual object formed between heaven and earth. It has divine sense on it. Although it has not become a spirit, it will not be easily used by others. Therefore, only by destroying its original divine sense can you absorb it into your divine sense and use it for yourself. Oh. Destroy the divine sense? Xiao Chen was slightly stunned. This was the first time he had heard of this. Yes, you need to use your own divine sense to refine the mystical flame's divine sense and add your own divine sense to it. Elder Heaven Ancestor continued, this process may be very long, because it will also take some time for you to form a communication with the mystical flame's divine sense. Communication with divine sense? Xiao Chen suddenly had an idea, then isn't it similar to the intent of comprehending the Tao and the Tao comprehension Sand Valley? Huh. It's really similar. If Xiao Chen had not mentioned it, the Elder Heaven Ancestor would not have thought of it. This way, you have the advantage. With the experience of communication, you should be able to smoothly form a communication with the mystical flame and then try to refine it. Okay, then I will try it now. Xiao Chen was a little excited. However, Xiao Chen, there is one thing I must remind you of. Although the mystical flame can increase a cultivator's strength after being subdued, it is not easy to subdue it. Elder Heaven Ancestor reminded him seriously, in the cultivation world, many cultivators who possess mystical flames can only do so under the protection of the elders of their clans or sections. However, you have no one to help you. Elder Heaven Ancestor, even if I wanted to help, would not be able to. Huh, aren't I a genius? Xiao Chen said smugly. I am a genius, even more powerful than you when you were young. Bullsh *T, without the help of spirit jades, you are nothing. Although Elder Heaven Ancestor said this, he had to admit that after Xiao Chen reversed cultivated the Heaven's stolen fortune battle art, his strength had indeed increased very quickly. In less than half a year, Xiao Chen had successfully built his foundation. In the cultivation world, he would be considered a genius, not to mention in the secular world where the spiritual energy was thin. Even with the help of spirit jades, how could a genius in the cultivation world not have the help of spirit jades? Or even more. Moreover, Xiao Chen had only started cultivating at the age of 18. He had clearly missed the best age. No matter how good his talent was, it would still be wasted. Hee hee. Xiao Chen sat cross-legged on the edge of the flame of the underworld. He closed his eyes and began to use his mind to communicate with it. Perhaps it was because he had the experience of communicating with the Tao Enlightenment Sand Valley. Very quickly, Xiao Chen's mind poured into the flame of the underworld and established a connection with it. Xiao Chen's eyes suddenly flashed with a hint of joy. It seemed that this deviant flame was very easy to communicate with. It was so easy to establish a connection with him. Thinking of this, Xiao Chen hurriedly concentrated and continued to communicate with the deviant flame. Xiao Chen seemed to have entered a new world. This was not the bottom of the hot spring, nor was it his spiritual space. Instead, it was an endless world of darkness. Inside, he could not even see his fingers in front of him. All around him, there were only clusters of bluish-purple flames surging back and forth. At this moment, Xiao Chen felt like he had entered a sea of fire in an ice cellar. Even though it was scorching hot on the outside, his heart was bone-chilling cold. This feeling was like two extremes of ice and fire. One cold and one hot, two extremes that could make a person collapse. Xiao Chen's forehead was covered in sweat. However, his teeth uncontrollably chattered as they trembled. He seemed to feel the anger of the flame of the underworld. This deviant flame could actually sense his intention to refine it. While it was protesting, it was also using its actions to punish Xiao Chen's ignorant actions. At this moment, Xiao Chen seemed to understand why the Elder Heaven Ancestor said that in the cultivation world, cultivators would need the protection of their family or sex elders in order to subdue the deviant flame of the underworld. If it was an ordinary person with a weak mind, under the cruel torture of ice and fire, it would be a small matter for them to suffer from qi deviation. They might even collapse and die if they were not careful. Break for me. While Xiao Chen used his body to resist the scorching heat and bitter cold, He released his divine sense, surging in all directions, preparing to invade the deviant flame. After releasing his divine sense, Xiaochen felt an obstructing aura. In the surroundings, there was something that was resisting Xiaochen's divine sense. However, Xiaochen was also a determined person. He would not give up just because of this little bit of difficulty. In the past, when he could not become a martial artist, he persevered for more than 10 years. He was a good example. How long had it been? However, he did not care and continued to use his divine sense to invade the surrounding deviant flame. His divine sense was very strong. He did not believe that this deviant flame could resist for a while, but it could resist for a lifetime. Xiaochen's persistence seemed to have aroused the strong dissatisfaction of the deviant flame. Xiaochen clearly felt that his body was more than twice as hot as before. That bone-chilling cold in his heart had also dropped to the freezing point. Suddenly, the scene in front of Xiaochen changed. It turned into another scene. It was as if he had returned to the bottom of the hot spring. He saw an imposing man falling from above, falling into the bottom of the lake. It was his father, Xiao Feng. Xiaocheng's heart trembled. He saw his father struggling in pain, unable to breathe in the hot spring. He tore at his clothes, and the jade pendant on his neck was torn off and thrown to the side. Xiaochen watched as his father walked step by step towards the edge of death, but he was powerless. It was as if he was by his father's side, but he was unable to interfere. He was like a bystander, only able to watch from afar. Chapter 654. Dad! Xiaochen shouted. Master, what's wrong with you? And Xiaoma looked at Xiaochen's strange expression and shouted, which made him a little puzzled. Hearing in Xiaoma's voice, Xiaochen was suddenly shocked. The scene in front of him disappeared in an instant. He was still surrounded by endless darkness, with only the bluish-purple flame surrounding him. Phew! It's actually an illusion. Xiaochen did not expect that he would have an illusion just now. It should be that the flame of the underworld was unwilling to be subdued and refined by him, so it created an illusion to confuse him. After regaining his calmness, Xiaochen began to refine the flame of the underworld again. He seemed to feel its unwillingness, but Xiaochen's heart was so firm that he would not give up because of these illusions. The surrounding 9 underworld flames also felt Xiaochen's determination and began to struggle on the verge of death. The heat that covered the sky and the earth, and the deep chill that came from the heart, made Xiaochen sink deep into it, and he couldn't help but shiver. However, Xiaochen's divine sense was constantly fighting against the surrounding flames, wanting to integrate into it. The scene in front of him changed, and he saw Shenjingxian. The Sky Fox sect was destroyed, and Shenjingxuan's body was pierced by a long sword. Cheng Menjing, Jin Beibei, Yi Xiaoya, Tang Tang, Su Chuxia, Tian Suruan, Song Huawu, Hong Zhu. The figures of these people flashed in front of him one by one, each more miserable than the last. However, Xiaochen did not care at all. He already knew that these were all fake. It was just an illusion created by the extraordinary flame because it did not want to be refined by him. At this moment, there was only determination in Xiaochen's eyes. Although the extraordinary flame could affect his thoughts, Xiaochen had walked out of the demonic path of illusion. All these became fleeting clouds, and it was as ridiculous as watching an advertisement. At the same time, Xiaochen increased the intensity of refining the mystical fire. The purplish-blue flames around him obviously couldn't resist for too long. Xiaochen could feel that the 9 underworld fire's spiritual sense had begun to be broken by him. The moment his spiritual sense entered the 9 underworld fire, a message also poured into Xiaochen's mind. Let me go. I beg of you, it's not easy for the heavenly flame to have its own thoughts. I've already surpassed divine sense and have my own thoughts. Xiaochen was slightly stunned. He didn't expect that the fire of the underworld had already developed a mind of its own. He didn't know what to do, so he turned to the Elder Heaven Ancestor for help. Surprised, the Elder Heaven Ancestor said, heavenly flames can form their own divine sense. However, this divine sense is mostly a form of self-protection. It's very rare for it to form its own thoughts, Zhao Feng said. I've only heard of it, but I've never seen it. Then what should I do now? Xiao Chen heard that the elder heaven ancestor hadn't seen it before, so he felt even more strange. You might as well talk to it. The elder heaven ancestor said after thinking for a moment. You're the 9 underworld fire. In order to subdue and refine you, I've traveled thousands of miles to come here. Do you mean that you want me to return without accomplishing anything? Xiao Chen asked coldly. No, I mean, can you keep my spiritual sense? You can refine me, but don't erase my spiritual sense. I'm not an ordinary mystical fire. I've formed my own thoughts. I don't want to dissipate from this world. The 9 underworld fire begged. Then what's in it for me? Xiao Chen didn't directly agree, but asked. You can refine me into an existence similar to your ghost talisman devil. I need to listen to you, and I can't disobey or resist. But I can also help you do a lot of things. The 9 underworld fire said. What can you do? Let me see your value first. When Xiao Chen heard this, he felt that it was a good thing. But on the surface, he pretended to be very disdainful. For example, when you're refining pills, if you can't accurately control the pill fire, I can help you control it. Because I'm the 9 underworld fire, I can easily change and control the temperature. The 9 underworld fire said, then, if you see other mystical fires, I can also help you subdue and refine them. Fusing them with me, I can also continue to help you control them. Oh, what else? Xiao Chen was very happy. Just these few benefits were already a lot. Also, I can help you attack people. I can sneak attack. The 9 underworld fire said, I can secretly appear and help you sneak attack the opponent. Oh, alright, seeing that you're barely useful, I promise you. Then I'll continue. As Xiao Chen spoke, he began to continue refining the 9 underworld fire. But this time, Xiao Chen was only inclined to integrate his own divine sense into it. He did not attack and erase the original divine sense of the mystical fire. This time, the 9 underworld fire's divine sense also gave up resisting. Instead, it let Xiao Chen's divine sense smoothly enter and fuse with it. Since Xiao Chen had already promised it, it could only resign itself to fate. If Xiao Chen went back on his word at the last minute and erased its divine sense after fusing with the mystical fire, it would be too easy. But it also knew that even if it resisted, it would not be able to resist for long, so it could only choose to believe in Xiao Chen. Phew. Half an hour later, Xiao Chen opened his eyes. The flame in his divine sense had completely disappeared. In its place, Xiao Chen felt that the 9 underworld fire was already in his sea of divine sense. Suddenly, Xiao Chen was filled with excitement. He had successfully refined the 9 underworld fire. This mystical fire was indeed powerful. Even the elder heaven ancestor had to stay far away from it, not daring to rashly approach it. After hesitating for a moment, Xiao Chen withdrew from his sea of knowledge. He wanted to test the power of this mystical fire. He opened his eyes and with a thought, a palm-sized bluish-purple flame immediately appeared in Xiao Chen's palm. It jumped back and forth on top of the flame. It was obviously somewhat happy that Xiao Chen had kept his promise and preserved its divine sense. Just from the palm of his hand, Xiao Chen could feel that the power of this mystical fire was not comparable to the Samadhi true fire. At this moment, even if it was a 5th stage martial master, Xiao Chen was confident that he could turn him into ashes. Thinking of this, a cold light flashed in Xiao Chen's eyes. You dare to kick me into the hot spring? See if I don't kill you when I get back. Although I had indirectly helped Xiao Chen had always been a vengeful person. Clenching his fists tightly, the deviant flame disappeared. At this moment, Xiao Chen's face was filled with arrogance. However, what surprised him was that the hot spring water, which was originally warm and hot, had gradually cooled down after the flames of the underworld were subdued and refined. From now on, you will be called Little Underworld. Xiao Chen gave the 9 underworld fire a name. You and the little demon must live in harmony, do you hear me? Yes, master. The 9 underworld fire immediately said. Although it was powerful, it was actually weaker than the ghost talisman devil. If Xiao Chen wanted to erase its divine sense, the mystical fire could still be used, but the ghost talisman devil would be useless. Therefore, it cared more about Xiao Chen's attitude than a little demon. Let me ask you something, little underworld. Have you been at the bottom of this pool for a long time? Do you remember everything that happened here? Xiao Chen asked. I remember most of it. What does Master want to know? Little underworld asked. Do you have any impression of this jade pendant? Who did it fall from? Do you remember what he looked like? Xiao Chen paused. He was a little nervous. He wanted to know the truth, but he was afraid to know the truth. This was a very contradictory mentality. He was very afraid that little underworld would say that the person was his father, Xiao Feng. Even if he knew the truth, he would be very unhappy. I have some impression. Little underworld saw the jade pendant in Xiao Chen's hand and fell into memory. I paid special attention to this shiny thing. At that time, it was a man with a big beard. He was a little burly, and his face was full of muscles. Well, it's all right. After hearing these characteristics, Xiao Chen immediately ruled out his father. This was because they were two completely different people. It was impossible for him to be his father, Xiao Feng. It seemed that this jade pendant had fallen into someone else's hands for some reason. Xiao Chen was also relieved at this moment. I'm going up now. By the way, there is gravity at the bottom of the pool. Little underworld, can you crack it? Xiao Chen asked. Yes, I am not afraid of gravity. If I am on you, Master, then you will not be afraid of gravity. Little underworld said. Xiao Chen was stunned. He tried it and felt that his body was as light as a swallow. He did not feel heavy at all. Now, Xiao Chen was fine. He had refined the mystical flame. Although there was no news of his father, as the saying goes, no news is good news. Thinking of this, Xiao Chen jumped up and swam up. Those practitioners who were practicing in the hot spring also felt that something was wrong at this moment. Because the water in the hot spring gradually became cold. Without the burning of the mystical flame, the spring water also lost its effect of bone and marrow cleansing. A level 6 martial master, who was also the one with the highest cultivation among them, stood up angrily from the practicing position in the hot spring. He looked around and shouted angrily, "What's going on? Who knows what's wrong?" He was also on the verge of a breakthrough, so he was practicing hard. However, the hot spring water did not work. How could he not be annoyed? Who did it? Why is the spiritual qi in the hot spring gone and the water cold? The level 6 martial master felt that someone must have done something to the hot spring. Otherwise, the current situation would not have happened. However, all the cultivators present stopped their cultivation and looked at him blankly. They also knew that the hot spring was not working, but they also wanted to know why. Many people had come here with great difficulty, but the hot spring suddenly lost its effect. At this time, at the edge of the hot spring, a practitioner suddenly pointed at the level 5 martial master who had driven away Xiao Chen and said, "Just now, he broke through." He was now at the peak of the level 5 martial master. That's right, the 3 of them came later. The hot spring pool was fine before, but when they came, there was a problem. Moreover, this person must have absorbed a large amount of hot spring water to break through. Another cultivator who had suffered a loss also stood up and added insult to injury. You're tuning in to the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.